Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to finally the long awaited, or not necessarily awaited, because I can't, say how many people are actually have been waiting for this, but we've been talking about doing this for a very, very long time. I've been talking about doing this since before I realized that I was going to be doing this with Spacepan and Our Cat's Gay. I was hoping to do some sort of a gay to do this. And so here we are, the Gaytriarchy podcast. Welcome, gays of the internet who aren't feminists. I assume that you wouldn't be feminists if you even tune into something called the Gaytriarchy podcast.
They could be doing it because they have a trigger addiction.
Intro's not over. Shut up. So welcome. I am your host and founder, Prince of Queens, and these are my two co-hosts, Spacepan and Our Cat's Gay, that I might get rid of at any moment, but probably not. We've just never done this before. And I wanted to say, have you noticed that the decadent party that was the Obama years is over? Are you in rehab? Have you realized after coming down that you're miserable, that your life is crappy, and that any resource that is intended to help you might just happen to be run by fucking feminists and doesn't really help you at all? Well, don't go. Instead, listen to this goddamn podcast. All right. So, here we are. I don't really have much more to say about the purpose of this. If I would assume that the only people that are here right now for this first one are people that are already familiar with my channel, and I have, a playlist that's over 20 videos long, that I could add more videos to, devoted to gay men and feminism and SJWs and things like that. So you guys could go kind of watch that if you want a little bit more backstory. But why don't my co-hosts introduce themselves and how they became interested in making this type of content on YouTube? I'll give you guys a brief introduction. First, immediately to my left is Spacepan, who I would say is maybe a little bit more of an MRA than he is gay. But why don't you tell me? Am I wrong?
No, that's not wrong at all. That's based on time. That's actually mathematically very true. Without getting too depressing, right? But no. So basically, I am a little bit different from other MRAs because for me, I was kind of watching YouTube a little bit casually when I was in college, and I was on the Ron Paul group back in 2008. And Stefan Molyneux had actually put out a video. It's one of his most famous ones from that time period, which was the truth about voting. And it was deliberately directed at Ron Paul kids. And it had a whole message about how philosophy is the true path to freedom over politics. And it really kind of set me on a different sort of a path. So anyway, by the time I had finished my college degree, I kind of filled the void with just more fucking YouTube. And then eventually he had done interviews with different MRIs, both Karen and Paul Elam, I think in the same year, I think both in 2013, which was the same year that, or it was early 2014 when Allison Tiemann, Hannah, and Karen had formed Honey Badger Radio. So anyway, all of that, I kind of lurked and watched all of that form slowly over many years. And I think that probably a lot of other people who watch things are kind of in that cluster as well. And then other people probably joined a little bit later on too. And that was around the same time we were in Sargon first become a thing too. But anyway, for a while I just kind of lurked, and then eventually I went out to the first International Conference of Men's Issues in 2014. And there, that was where I had actually gotten to meet like-minded people and actually had different conversations and everything. And that time I still kind of had the delusion that maybe it was only third wave feminism that had gone off the rails. It wasn't until I had gone there and then listened to Karen's speech there and really gotten kind of more, just deeper into it, that I had realized that it was actually, the entire movement.
Yeah, and it always has that.
Exactly. So people have all kinds of different definitions of the red pill. My definition of the red pill is that it's when you regain the half of your humanity that you actually have to learn. And I think that basically we're born with our half of our humanity that is empathetic and has care and concern for women, and we have to learn the other half toward men. And I don't think that humans have ever done that. And that's kind of my basis for understanding gender relations. And the really fucked up thing is that actually seems to be largely the case.
That's actually a pretty interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, and I'd rather have not be the case. But anyway, so I rambled enough, but that's a little bit of my background.
No, I like it when you ramble. But for the audience, one thing that I've never really been clear about, I've never really asked you, even though we've been friends, like online friends for years now. When did you come out as gay? Because you obviously it was pretty young, because you sound super gay.
I actually never formally did. I just kind of accepted that. Basically, what happened was when I went to college, I was just out in college because at that point you have like a new identity. So anybody who met me from that point onward just knew that about me. And it's something that I only bring up when it's actually relevant, which isn't very often because it's only relevant if I'm like in the literal act of like dating, basically, which I just like I don't fucking care. I don't do that really. So it just doesn't come up. I've actually had people say to me that they can't perceive of me as like being with anyone. They just think it seems like appropriate that I'm just like always single, which is I don't know how to take that. Like that's just like I've just been told that. But anyway, so basically, and this is actually something too. One thing that Molyneux was into early on, around the same time period he first started was so this unschooling and this peaceful parenting. And it's one thing that I think that parents particularly tend to screw up on with gay children is that a lot of them think that, oh, if you're kind of opening and accepting, you don't shame them, that's good enough. But one part of it too is that I think that a lot of these statistics that are affecting like gay men or anything, I think that a lot of it is really unparented people, because if you're gay and closeted, like you don't have parents basically, right? So the way I see it is that insofar as I have like any kind of dating or whatever, like I don't have parents who are like in my life in that way because they weren't there, when I was younger. So therefore it's kind of like you're on your own. So it's sort of like you have like an orphan identity sexually, if that makes sense.
Okay, that bit I didn't entirely follow, and I might have to go and listen to again. But a lot of what you say does really make sense when you get kind of heady. You have a philosophy degree, and I can't always follow what you're saying. But then I listen to it a few times, and I'm like, oh, that actually does make sense. And I appreciate that about you. That. Okay, so I didn't know the explanation that you sort of just like were gay at college and you didn't ever formally come out, but okay, so that makes sense. I see it
is like straight people don't have to come out, so why should gay people? And like that, I've always just kind of despised that presumption, and I feel like it should be the same way. It should be an organic thing. Like you should just kind of know, and I kind of just lived that model in my own life, even though that's not exactly where the standard is, I guess.
Yeah, for me, I always tell people I didn't come out. So I came out when I was 14, and I like to tell people that I didn't come out. I surrendered because my parents, my mom especially, and my sisters they thought that I was allegedly, and I don't know if this is true. Allegedly, my mom was telling my sisters that I was gay since I was like, 3, I believe. And so by the time I was 12, they were just, like, you're gay. And so when I went to high school, and I went to an alternative high school, it was just like, okay, I'll just admit. But see, they were all feminists, and they desperately wanted me to be gay because they hated men that much. So, yeah.
Did you guys forget about me?
No, not at all. Not at all. I wanted that little bit of clarification from Spacepan at the beginning of the thing about coming out. And you just had your whole stream dedicated to you and your life history. But let's give it a little brief version of you have to remember I'm moderating this thing. We have a little bit of a format.
Mm-hmm. No, don't worry, Arcatsuke, after you finish your bit, I also have a question for you, too. So I'm going to get cozy with my beer during your nice long introduction, and then I'm going to have a question for you so you get even more of the stream.
And hey, by the way, Saint of Bacon, because I like your channel, you are now a moderator. Use your
Use your
Wrench.
powers for good.
Use your powers for good, because I kind of suspect you're going to have to use them tonight.
Well, he didn't get canonized for nothing, right?
Bacon is very cool. I've talked to him before.
Yeah. So, okay, Cats. Brief intro about yourself, why you started your channel, when you came out, why you cared about men's rights, and that kind of crap.
Hello, everyone. I'm Arcatsuke. I'm the newest YouTuber here. Yeah, so I'm about the same age as Prince. I never saw myself becoming a YouTuber. I came out. I'm a bit strange. I came out in middle school, and then I went back into the closet because I fell in love with a straight boy that I didn't think would accept me. I was also extremely religious, so then I came out for the last time after college. I mean, I don't know how I thought that I could be telling people I was straight while I was still hooking up with guys on Craigslist, but yeah.
And he decided to say that he was straight because he thought that the guy he was in love with wouldn't like him enough if he didn't say so.
Well, yeah, I was deeply confused. Well, I mean, like, he told me this story about like a best friend that he used to have who came out to him in a movie theater while they were sitting next to him, and then he's like, and so yeah, he told me that, and I hopped back to the next row next to a girl, and well, he didn't come over to my house anymore. And in my young, very fragile mind, I was like, oh, okay, not coming out to this one.
You're like, oh wait, so yeah, if I come out to you, you're gonna. If I don't come out to you, you'll sit in the same row and maybe give me a hickey.
There's something like that. I mean, like, it's intellectually indefensible, but you know, when you're a hormonal ninth grader, who knows what you think? Especially when you grew up with the same 20 kids for like second grade through 10th grade. I mean, like, I was sheltered, let's say.
Yeah, and that's a very reality distorting difference between the two of us. Like when I try to imagine what things must be like for you in regards to that, I can't really relate because I grew up in the inner city of Seattle, and it's just very different for me. Like,
yeah, I have no concept of like of urban reality. Cities and large crowds are sort of like movies. They're just these abstract things that I'm aware of. I even go to them from time to time, but I don't have any natural sense with them. As far as me, the YouTuber, my main issue is I've always been aware of how full of shit feminism is, particularly the way they treat men. Even when I was closeted, I started reading Christina Hoff Sommers. Maybe on some level, at the time, I thought was to, you know, justify, like, you know, well, of course, the reason I'm not having sex with women is because, you know, they're all these crazy feminists, and then she made me feel good about not being a feminist. In retrospect, I realized, no, that really was just kind of like a surface thing. The real thing was I was just sensing intellectual duplicity and double speak. My moment, my red pill, whatever you want to call it, when I became a YouTuber was when I saw this article on The Verge about Grindr and how they had broadened their categories to include transgender individuals and I believe cis women also, basically other gender identities on an M for M hookup app. And it was just it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And
Yeah.
I'd already learned that you can't talk about these things on Facebook because I got just royally flamed out and kind of ostracized by a lot of my friends when I started talking about the stuff. Because, you know, California, Bay Area, gay, like, there's just some things you don't do, and that's one of them. So yeah, and I didn't want to become unemployable because, again, Bay Area jobs check your Facebook feed. So
yeah.
I made an avatar.
This guy hates women.
Oh my god, no, seriously. He's unemployable. Like, he's an HR nightmare. He has a personality and thoughts.
He doesn't want to fuck a vagina from a hookup profile.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hire him.
No. Oh, as if they need much of a reason not to hire someone, particularly if they're male. But yeah, so I made my first video on on my phone because I didn't have a desktop at the time, and I didn't know what I was doing. I had some background in film from college. I was a film studies major, so I had a couple student films, but mostly I just watched a lot of movies and wrote really long jargon-filled essays about plot structures and semiotics and a bunch of stuff which I can barely remember anymore. But yeah, so I did that, and I spammed your channel because at the time I didn't realize that you really aren't supposed to do that, but I did, and
we all do it a little bit though.
yeah,
We all do it for a second.
we all have to start somewhere, and I spammed your channel, and I realized that because you had I forget which one it was, but you had just uploaded it. It was only up. It had only been up for like, I don't know, 10 minutes or something like that, and I was like, oh, okay, this is perfect. There's like only 2 comments. It was just 10 minutes ago. If he's ever going to check the comments, it'll be now.
And it didn't go right to the spam filter is the other thing.
Yeah, I was very lucky, and you happened to like it.
I really liked it, and I shared it, and it became a saga actually of me sharing your video because it ended up resulting in a conflict between me and a moderator who said that it was hate speech. And I was like, well, what is hate speech and what gives you so much authority, Mr. Man? And then he ended up banning me, and it was this weird thing. So yeah.
I was an agent of chaos and censorship, and yeah, I've been making them ever since. I've only been doing it for about I've been doing it since December of last year, so I guess like not even 4 or 5 months. I have since then I'm not using my phone anymore. I bought a microphone, which is hopefully working properly right now, and I've learned how to use editing software. And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of straying a little bit from some of the reaction commentary videos that I was doing. A lot of my early videos, honestly, I was just experimenting with editing and trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. And I've kind of starting to get a sense of like what works, what doesn't, what I like to do. And well, I'm really happy because I've got about 350 people right now who, for whatever reason, are interested enough to click an icon and find out when I'm making more stuff. So yeah.
I take a particular I took particular note in you for my own selfish reasons because you're a gay guy that is talking about and that's why I started this podcast to bring it all back around to the intro. Is that I believe that maybe our cat's gay a little bit more than Spacepan. But Spacepan can definitely help because he's a true-blooded MRA and knows all the arguments very, very thoroughly.
You're a Murrah.
We are gay guys who want feminism out of gay male reality as much as we possibly can. We want to basically say, no, we do not want anything to do with your patriarchy theory nonsense. We can prove exactly why it's nonsense as gay men in a unique way that just about nobody else can. Because there's so many things about us intrinsically as gay men that prove that they're little theories that, all men do. Like, men wake up every day with the intent of, oppressing women, and that's what drives us from, dawn till dusk. We prove that that's not true. And when Our Cat's Gay talks about that, it resonates with his audience, and that's what I want to do with this podcast. And I want to explore issues related to gay men and all men. And I hope that it is a successful endeavor. And thank you very much for the $5 super chat, Mythic Relic. That's really, really nice of you. So, yeah. Now, what we're going to be talking about this evening as our first subject of conversation, and then we can wander around wherever we want to go, but we were going to be having a little bit of a actual debate because
you might say a snip of conversation.
Yeah, a little bit of a snip of conversation because Spacepan and Our Cat's Gay have never talked, but they have certainly talked about each other to me. And the thing, I mean, not like a whole bunch, but I don't remember what Spacepan said that he wanted to say to Our Cat's Gay, but he mentioned that he wanted to stream with him. He mentioned that he seemed cool and worth streaming. Our Cat's Gay said, and I think this came as a result of both of them have guest videos on my channel that you guys should go watch if you haven't seen them already. After they both posted their guest videos, they talked to me a little bit about each other, and both of them, liked each other. This is not like they have any problems with each other. But the thing that what's their the Our Cat's Gay believes that what's Spacepan is not, I don't want to say wrong about, because that's not exactly, he thinks that Spacepan is a little preoccupied with the wiener chopping thing, I guess is the best way to say
You
it.
not to be a dick. If by the way, people, if you're triggered by puns, you should just leave. Like I will trigger the hell out of you because that's just what I do.
Yeah, and I'll just sort of say my perception. I want to say I'm going to be sort of moderating this if this is going to be a debate. I'm neutral in the way that I ultimately do side with Spacepan. I am uncircumcised. I'm glad I'm uncircumcised. I think that people should not circumcise infants from birth. I think that the effects of infant trauma are not super well known, and it's probably going to be really hard to ever really know how much infant trauma affects young children. And then there's like all the arguments about lack of sensitivity, and I've certainly never gotten a dick infection from being uncircumcised. I like my penis. I have had boyfriends that have had uncut dicks, and I like that. And that is my stance. However, I also can see that there is an argument to be made that Spacepan acts like it's the most solid MRA argument that, babies are always circumcised and that's treated as normal. Therefore, he focuses a lot of attention on it. And I'm not sure I agree that it's the strongest argument. And I think that that's the main thing that Our Cat's Gay is criticizing about him, is that he just focuses on it a little bit too much. That's my impression of this going into it, and that's how I'm going to moderate this debate or discussion.
The pink blood sports.
The pink sports.
Pink sports.
Yeah.
No blood sports.
No. We blood is red and tacky. We prefer pink.
As a nurse, I must say I am adamantly against anything that causes blood to flow, except in arteries where it belongs.
So how about
something?
So how about this? Because of the fact that this was inspired by Spacepan's particular passion about being anti-circumcision, why don't he have the floor first to sort of state his case? Because this was not something, he didn't come to Our Cat's Gay. Our Cat's Gay noticed that he was very passionate about this. So I want to give him a chance to explain his perspective about why he's so passionate about this first.
You get the opening salvo.
Okay, great. And it's a totally valid criticism, because I absolutely do place a disproportionate focus on it. And I think that part of it is, I don't know, I guess you'll find that with people who are MRAs or people who speak to any issue, they tend to gravitate towards a particular body of issues. There's a lot of reasons that I think that focusing on the circumcision argument is so powerful. One thing is that it is on the decline. The vast majority of the world doesn't do it. Like, the US is considered extremely weird for having a practice in it. There's definitely this entire angle of a medical, like a financial, what's the word I'm looking for? Ulterior motive, right? These doctors are getting money for doing it. And, the most fucked up thing about it is that when the government stopped covering it, and that parents were looking at, paying a couple $100s to do it themselves, to pay for it themselves. I mean, that actually is the single biggest contributor to it declining, which the reason that I pointed out is because if you think about a male life, like, this is the beginning and first thing, right? And what I do is I set this up because what I want to do is show people the narrative of, all these regret parents, all these parents who do this and then regret it later. you know, what they say is, oh, if only I could have done more, I would have, you know, done more to protect my son. And it's a setup, because what I want to do is, first I have the circumcision argument, and I think that it's totally solid. There's absolutely no reason to do it. It's completely despicable. I do hold that anybody who's ever performed one on an infant should get the death penalty. And I actually hold to the extreme.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I just want to.
That's my position, is death.
That laughter was not to mock you. It was just literally that I've never actually heard. I've never heard you say that out loud before. So that
is a position I hold. That's where I'm gonna. I know if someone wants to maybe argue with me to like say if they beg for mercy enough that like we'll just give them like, I don't know, like 50 years in jail or something, like I'll hear it, but that's where I'm starting. Just like Donald Trump has, negotiate from a position of power, and I think that I can go that far. So I'm at the very end of the field, and my point is, look, I can stand here and I can defend these positions. Where the fuck are you? Like, maybe you're not maybe you're not at the 100-foot mark, but maybe you're seeing me and you're like, you know what? Fuck, I could go to 85. I could go to 90. And it's not just a rhetorical thing. It's not just because I think it's rhetorically useful. It's because I recognize that, like, I legitimately can hold the position, and it's a very strong maybe, and I can't in good faith say that I'm wrong, and I say that. So I'm going to say the position, state it loudly, and I'm going to bait someone into proving me wrong, that we shouldn't have death camps for people who cut babies, and that we shouldn't shun them as baby rapists. And frankly, I would be willing to entertain punishing the parents as well. Like, you have your baby circumcised, it goes wrong, your baby dies. You know what? Maybe the parents should be guilty of negligent homicide for being, part of this. They, had a doctor hand it over to Larry Nassar, someone who's worse than Larry Nassar. So, but the reason I set up that is because first there's the circumcision debate, right? And then all these regret parents say, oh, if only I could have done more. And I say, okay, have you thought about boys in education? Have you thought about the suicide rate? Have you thought about his risk of violence? Have you thought about the fact that if he is the victim of a female perpetrated sex crime, that it's not going to get counted the same way? He's not going to get taken seriously. Have you thought about any of these other issues going through his entire life? Have you thought about the fact that when he's older and he works, he's more likely to work in harder labor, where he has, a higher chance of being part of the workplace death toll? Or maybe he's going to have his body break down and have a chronic pain condition and then get addicted to a medication that he was prescribed for, and then be shunned as a drug addict in his dying days, right? And like, this is like, the suicide rate, I absolutely lay it at the feet of feminists. Like, I know that might sound ridiculous and over the top, but like, I think there's a case to be made, and I'm throwing it out there. So
okay, so
I start with circumcision because
I have a question.
Okay. I filibustered. Sorry.
So a lot of what you were just saying didn't have that much to do with circumcision, clearly, but I know that a fair amount of it did. And I want to be very explicit about what you think. I want you to be clear about how do you think that circumcision might have led to circumcision itself, just by itself, might have led to suicide rates, and maybe, because I think you said urinary tract infections or some shit like that. Clarify your position on that.
Well, actually, I can take that in a relevant but different direction, which is one thing that intactivists get blamed for is that, a lot of young men, when they learn the truth about circumcision, when they learn about, the loss of sensitivity, when they learn about these ongoing issues, when they realize it's reality, and then they're reminded of it every single time they look at their penis, and it's something that pushes them over the edge into suicide. And there have actually been cases where you've had suicides tied to this, where intactivists get blamed for it. So I did want to actually mention that, because I think it's something that's definitely...
Wait, when you say intact. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's it's a blind.
Yeah. Okay. An intactivist is an anti-circumcision activist.
Exactly.
So when Derek uses and by the way, chat, if in case you're confused, Spacepan is Derek. They're the same person. So because someone asked that. So yeah. So what you're saying is that when somebody realizes, reiterate that thought.
What it is that you have young men who have committed suicide over the fact that they're circumcised. And then they point and they blame, well, you guys are the ones pointing out all the problems with circumcision. If you hadn't done that,
Yeah.
then he wouldn't have killed himself.
Okay.
You know, and obviously I don't think that's a valid point. I think that I say, sorry, like, you chose to do this to your son. Like, it is your fault. And nobody's willing to say that. We have such a strong culture of don't criticize parents, right? And it's because, you know, most of us are parents, and like most of us are raised by parents. Parents have a really, really strong group within a culture, right? So you have this ongoing pressure and culture to, like anything that doesn't shame parents kind of works to their advantage, and they've created a culture where they seem to be, you know, they're too immune to criticism. They're not virtually immune, but
yeah.
I don't know if you guys think that's fair. That's been my perception.
Oh
that
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
taboo
People
to
are.
criticize someone's parenting style, even when it's super well established.
Oh
And
God, it's so yeah, no, that's something I've definitely noticed. People get so butthurt about like even the smallest criticisms of parenting and even like the most obvious bad parent. There was this girl I always used, just quick aside, this girl back when I was a raver in the early 2000s, um, she would post on these message boards and like she would drive all the way up from like Portland, Oregon or Oakland, California to go to Portland, Oregon and go to some rave, and she would take all these drugs and she would then like try to explain herself like, just so y'all know, I don't always use as much drugs as when y'all see me. It's just that I drove all the way up, so I want to use all the drugs. And then she would like bring her kid to the rave. She'd like bring some like, you know, like 7-year-old kid, and she'd be like, "Oh, I take my kid to the raves because all the other kids, like, because the coolest kids are all at the raves for him to hang out with." And it's just like, and eventually I was like, "You are an awful parent. Like, why are you talking about this?" And people were like, "You shouldn't say that to her, man. You shouldn't criticize her. That's not cool, bro." And it's just like, no, I'm sorry, no. So yeah. That's a definite a thing that people have, like, you know, you're not allowed to criticize parents, and then parents get really defensive if you were to say, hey, maybe you shouldn't have circumcised your kid, and not just maybe you shouldn't have, but maybe America shouldn't have. And that becomes a very strange dilemma. But could you talk about just a teeny bit about the points from the intactivists that they make regarding things like sensitivity and things like that that maybe would lead someone to suicide?
well, I mean, the one of the figures that's always cited is like 20,000 nerves. People contest that. A lot of this is contested.
What's
But,
the percentage of nerves again that's in the penis?
oh, the whole percentage shit, I don't know if I can give that much of a breakdown. I think that what people say though is in terms of sensitivity, it's either the foreskin or the glands. They're like comparatively pleasurable, but over time, the head of the penis, you know, it actually what's the word, kinetizes over time because it's not shielded by anything, which is why they have these products called like manhood, right? If you're cut, you can actually get these products that you wear, like basically an artificial foreskin to actually protect the head of your penis. And if you are a young man and you start wearing one, then it'll actually prevent some of the loss of sensitivity that occurs over time. But
Oh God, I didn't even think about that.
yeah, these are real products. I personally haven't tried it, but I am, you know, considering getting one because, you know, why the fuck not? It's a great idea, I think. There's some of them that are also restoration, and that's something that's a little bit. I actually, when I was at Burning Man, I met somebody who he's like a doctor who like specializes in this, and he's actually like, this is his focus is on restoration and healing, and he does like a kind of a therapy and that sort of thing for like cut men, basically. He's a really cool guy. But I'm a little bit torn over the idea of trying to do that restoration, because if in the future they do have the technology to just like actually organically grow one, then you would have to, in theory, you'd have to be circumcised again. Which, like, this sounds like a great drama. This would be like a great like Black Mirror episode or some shit, like 100 years in the future. But so that's just one thing. There's that whole culture of trying to restore. But my focus is, you know, I don't make it about myself. I don't make it anything like that. My focus is like, look, if you choose to do this to your son, I'm going to make sure he grows up to fucking hate you for it. And if that doesn't motivate you to not do it, like, I don't know what the fuck would. because I can't motivate you based on the fact that he might die. I can't motivate you based on like the fact that you're damaging his sexual organs permanently. I can't do it based on the fact that every single time he looks at his penis, he's going to be reminded of the fact that you did this to him. Like I, like I can't appeal to the harm of the baby because he's a male, and this is the reason we have men's issues. And I know it sounds ridiculous, it sounds conspiratorial, but this is the heart of it.
Would you say
like,
this?
Point to
would
this.
You say this lack of compassion? You mean this lack of compassion that allows parents? No. This lack of compassion that allows people to treat male babies like this is the problem.
Exactly. That's the core of every single men's issue. Is our willingness to cut infant male penises, basically. I mean, not really, because
I think what you mean is that
you're spared from this one, but that's
emblematic.
But basically, every single men's issue, I reduce it down to that. Like here's one thing: it's in philosophy. Reductionist is one of the F words. There's like 3 or 4 F words in philosophy. One of them is Ayn Rand. Another one is reductionist. And it's something that people will say when they're just being dicks, and they're like, "You're being reductionist." It's just a douchey way of calling someone simplistic. I am a reductionist. I'm a proud reductionist. We need more of that. We have too many sophist fucking cons just jacking shit up arbitrary levels of abstraction just to do their stupid fucking dances to justify their bullshit. We need people to just take philosophy and break its fucking clay feet and bring that shit down back to earth. And that's what YouTube does. That's what like just all of this shit on YouTube does.
Okay.
Sorry, but anyway, I was going to bring back to the point. So the point is, it hurts all the sensitivity, and then any tissue that you amputate, like that tissue doesn't feel anything, right? So if you remove penis and you have less penis, it means you feel less with your penis, right? Like, I don't understand why it's even contested. It's so fucking obvious. Of course you experience less sexual pleasure if you have less of your fucking sexual organ. It's a fucking no-brainer. Like, people make all kinds of creative arguments about like, oh no, nerves actually grow around and rewire themselves. And it's like, no, that's not a thing that's happening here. It's not a thing. You're severing nerves. They're fucking dead. They're toast. And a lot of this technology that may or may not regrow foreskins, it might not even be able to regrow like nerves or whatever. Like we're looking at solutions where like one of them might regrow some sensation, one of them might regrow some of the form, but they're like incompatible. But the other point I want to bring up too is with intactive arguments, and this is my last point, which is that usually these arguments go this way. When you're trying to convince a parent, you say, well, you wouldn't do it to your daughter, right? We immediately make it about the female side of it. And that's because feminists partitioned the issue, right? Like we learned about genital mutilation, and then feminists made it only a girls' issue, even though all the places that cut girls also cut boys, pretty much. So there's no reason to make it a gendered issue, except that when you make it only a girls or only a women's issue, it's easier to get funding, even if like just the fact that the males are there like makes it less likely to get funding. It's really fucked up. Like there's so many good reasons to be an MRA. It's like so ludicrously ridiculous, like how neglected the issues are and how like powerful they are, like how much of an insane travesty that is that they're ignored. Like nothing else is like it. Like nothing since like fucking chattel slavery has been like this. And I would even make the argument that the body of men's issues taken together could even compare to that. But anyway, the point is that you can compare it to FGM. There's multiple kinds of both male and female genital mutilation. In the United States, there was a point where they actually had immigrants coming over and they wanted to practice a form of FGM. And they tried to make a compromise with the doctors to say, hey, can they just like prick it a little bit, right? Something totally minor, something that compared to a circumcision is like a walk in the fucking park. And the government lost its shit and was like, fuck you, you can't fucking do that to little girls. So the double standard is like very, very well established from every single angle. And usually what you find is that parents who are going to go ahead and cut their son don't know anything the fuck about it. They've just decided to do this because they're just mouth breathing idiots who just like aren't paying attention. The end.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention that one of the things that I found interesting about male circumcision is that when men lose their sexual pleasure in life, you know, like if they lose nerve functioning due to the fact that their foreskin was cut off, and then eventually, after years and years of the head of their dick rubbing against their underwear, they lose sensitivity. They become a lot more likely to commit suicide, and they also become a lot more likely to just become generally demoralized and therefore easier to control, I believe. And I think that people should look at that as sort of a general, because I am a tinfoil hat kind of a guy, motivation for why they might have instilled this as the norm. And yeah, that's just all I really have to say about that. So, cats. What do you want to say at this point?
Wow. So, Spacepan, you are you're very smart, I can tell. You have said a lot of things that I have never heard. I can't say I agree with all of it, but I can see your thought process. Are you familiar with Eve Ensler?
Yes, I am. Yeah, she's quite the character.
Yeah.
Are the vaginas in the house?
Yeah. I'm going to say this, and I mean this in a constructive way, not in a combative way, but honestly, you're
like her.
You are at least this version of you that you discuss with me. You are Eve Ensler, but just remove cunt with penis, and I don't like reductionism. I think that I remember I wrote an essay about the vagina monologues when I was in college, and my personal theory on Eve Ensler doesn't exactly line up with what I would say about you, but like, so Eve Ensler, I believe, wrote the vagina monologues. For those of you who don't know, a really bad series of monologues where an older Jewish woman, who I believe is a lesbian, just basically screams the word cunt and makes up a lot of unusual supposed oral histories, but in my experience were basically just a lot of women being way too anthropomorphic with their vaginas, like talking about how pubic hair was like protecting them, and like the men were pedophiles if they didn't want their bush, and if your vagina could talk, what would it say? Just really ridiculous stuff. Now, I'm not calling you ridiculous, Spacepan. You're not ridiculous. But I don't, in the same way that I think it's rather crude to reduce people and their whole kind of sense of being to an organ. Like, I think if it's ridiculous to do it with vaginas, it's I don't think that I agree with your position about the centrality of circumcision. I do agree with you that men are largely viewed as disposable in society, and the society is rife with double standards. Men are, by their nature, the warriors, the risk takers, the ones that are going to die, and women, the great incubators, the source of all replenishment of our ranks, are always going to be treated as more important on some, evolutionary psychology level. That being said, though, so you talk about the sensitivity and pain. So I will tell you, I come at this from a very different perspective, since I am a nurse and I come from a medical family. My dad is a doctor. My mom is a nurse. All of my aunts and uncles are nurses. My grandpa was a dentist. Like my whole family, we have been sticking sharp things in people and observing fluids and other things that most people would rather avoid. And, our Thanksgiving dinner conversation is interesting, let me tell you. So I just want to be very clear about this. I have never heard of men in any statistically great group killing themselves because they were circumcised. People do kill themselves for all kinds of sad and diverse reasons, but considering that circumcision in America is actually more common than being uncircumcised, just as a matter of fact, like my best friend, for instance, has 7 brothers. They're all circumcised, and it never came up. I don't. Let me. I'm rambling a little bit. I'm sorry. So basically, when we talk about like the pain that the baby goes through, babies do not feel pain the way you and I do. And I'll give you some example. I'm not even going to talk about the penis right now. Are you familiar with what happens to a baby when it is born? It literally, when it's coming down the birth canal, is its shoulders and other bones will often be dislocated in the process. Its skull will actually get warped in the process. Babies are in a constant state of being broken and reformed. They just don't feel pain the same way we do. I was circumcised as a baby, just to go anecdotal. I honestly couldn't tell you a single thing about that because my earliest memory is from when I'm 5. Most people that I have interacted with, and most of the literature which I have read from a medical, not political, but from a medical point of view, it does not come up. I mean, it's unless the only reason that a baby would feel pain in that area is if there was something that was done terribly wrong, in which case it's because the procedure was done incorrectly. But not even withstanding, the thing about circumcision that I think gets left out a lot is that it's not about, I think you ascribe very political motives to it. And for sure, there are some in some areas. But honestly, at this stage, the biggest reason that people get circumcised has more to do with hygiene than it does with any of the other things that we're talking about. In the third world in particular, it's very effective in order to prevent the spread of disease because an uncircumcised foreskin is a very ideal place for bacteria and other viruses and infections to develop. Now, the argument saying that, well, that can be prevented with meticulous hygiene. Yes, lots of things can be prevented with discipline and meticulous hygiene. Cavities are very easy to prevent, but people get them all the time. As a nurse, I can tell you I have seen many, 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 many penises that were poorly maintained. And as a result of that, people with infections, people with viruses, because there's more tissue to tear. On the argument of sexual pleasure, I can't speak to that. My penis and I have had many grand adventures together. And as far as I know, I've really enjoyed it. I feel like comparing the amount of pleasure that one person has versus another is very subjective because every single person is wired differently. My husband, for instance, has overactive nerves. He has fibromyalgia. He is in constant pain all the time. And then sometimes he's numb from things that are not objectively painful. They just are to him. In the same way, some people are more sensitive and less sensitive all over their body just by the way they are. I think also another argument that has been made in regards to that, assuming that even the sensitivity or subjective experience wasn't an issue, there's reduced sensitivity often leads to longer sexual intercourse. Hence, like why we have numbing lubricants and what is really how we usually as men judge our virility. It's not by whether or not we have some tissue around our penis or we don't. Usually, and let's be honest, we're gays. What do we care the most about a dick? It's not whether it's cut or not. It's how big is it. And there's nothing you can do about that.
Wait. Gotta insert myself. I don't think that's entirely.
You want to insert yourself, Prince?
Yeah, I gotta insert myself into that.
Okay, well, I am a size queen, but for a lot, it's not always true. But
I would say the majority of gay guys would prefer a nice, you know, 6.5, 7 incher to like just some fucking, you know, 8, 9 inch fucking thing.
but they're never going to say that. They're going given the choice between like if the only difference between a penis is like, okay, this penis you don't know how big it is, but it's cut or not cut, versus like, oh, he's got a big dick.
No,
However big it is.
a lot of guys like uncut dicks.
Okay, yeah, true.
I
We
can
all
I
have
can
our.
I can tell you from personal experience as an uncut dude.
Well, then we come down to just preferences. I mean, I personally prefer brunettes to blondes, and I don't particularly like freckles. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not attractive. But
well, coming think that like preferences should be consensual, right? Like people shouldn't be like forced to like have a dick. That's
wait. That's the. I want Katz to finish his thought. I just wanted to insert myself real quick. But I want him to have sort of the table in general.
Okay, I'll finish up in just a second. So, as far as like whether or not, whether or not it is a good or a bad thing objectively, which I don't think it's possible. So, like it, basically it either happened to you or not. Like circumcisions that are done much later in life are incredibly painful because you have a fully developed nervous system at that point, and there's a fairly lengthy recovery period from it. It's much harder. One of my early friends was Jewish who actually got circumcised later on in life, and he told his mom, I wish you had just done it when I was younger because I wouldn't know, but because this is really terrible. He did it specifically. It was kind of a weird thing where his mom wanted him to have the choice and he decided to do it because he was very into his Judaism, but notwithstanding religious arguments, because that's a whole can of worms. And there's no, my personal perspective is if you're going to do it when they're young. I personally don't think that it is a very, I really don't think it's a very important issue. And I don't mean to completely invalidate everything that you were talking about, Spacepan. I just think that you seem, in the same way that Eve Ensler sort of summarizes the whole of like the womanhood in the vagina, I think that trying to reduce all male issues into just a single organ, into like everything starts with the penis, is just way too simple. Men are much more than their penises. The issues that they suffer are far more diverse and complicated. They have to do with men as a whole, because you don't know whether a guy is cut or uncut except like in locker rooms or in or sexual circumstances. I feel like, as far as like a man is not necessarily going to feel emasculated in general. Maybe he will, but in general, he's not going to feel emasculated because he's been uncut. I feel like men feel more shame if they come too quickly. Personally, like I'm more embarrassed about like if I come quickly versus say, whether or not like my penis isn't, aesthetically pleasing or it's not big enough or whatever. Like if I come in 30 seconds, that's more embarrassing to me. But this is all personal stuff. Basically, I just think that circumcision is a perfectly valid option for people if they want to do it. And it is something that is not necessarily going to impact a baby in any way that I have ever come across in my professional life and studies. I've never seen any statistically large complication with that, any more so than the statistically people fall apart as they get older and as they live based on their circumstances and their choices. I think that the complications that one experiences from circumcision are possibly just as many, or even, in my opinion, fewer than those that you could experience from neglectful hygiene, torn tissue, caught it in the zipper, etc. I think that it just is. And I don't think that it is necessarily what MRAs should be focused on, because at the end of the day, it's just some skin.
Okay. So yeah. Huh. I uh I I I don't I feel like I'm in the obligatory moment as a facilitator where I should try to reiterate the positions again, but I guess if people are just tuning in, Derek is very, very passionate and adamant, and he believes that um, my reiteration would be something like that. He believes that circumcision is emblematic of the fact that people don't care about males, and that even when males are babies, the very first thing that fucking happens to them is that they get dehumanized in this way that will affect them for the rest of their lives. And that if we could maybe get people to care about that one issue, it would just make this huge, that would be a great starting point to get to the other issues for males. And Katz thinks that it's not super important, that there are decent reasons to have it, and that uh, you're circumcised, you don't mind being circumcised, and sorry, I can't remember all of the pro circumcision arguments that well.
It's in the third world. It is been shown to be a fairly effective way of reducing transmission of communicable diseases, particularly HIV and syphilis and other bacterial infections, because in developing countries where there aren't necessarily access to things like clean running water, soap, and other things, maintaining rigorous personal hygiene is just frankly more difficult.
Sure. Okay. But for the sake of this discussion, can we?
It's actually not true, though. I mean,
wait. I don't. You guys. I don't.
Sorry, I have to mention that because what that amounts to is a human experiment perpetrated by white people on black human experiments. It's to cut their fucking dicks off and then to make up a fake excuse for cutting off babies' foreskins in America. Like, that's what I think. That's what
Okay. So I think I've actually heard Derek explain that the study that has been used to cite that it's a good idea is based around a bunch of people that were basically allegedly guinea pigs. I don't know whether that's true or not, and honestly, I don't think that we should spend that much time trying to debunk that specific thing. How about, for the purposes of this stream, let's keep everything confined to the Western developed world. That's what we're talking about. Circumcision in the United States
it is worth mentioning that the practice was most popularized by Jews in the beginning, and depending who you talk to, Jews do not, especially if you talk to alt-right people, Jewish people are not white. I'm not saying that the data that we talk about,
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
Circumcision.
I mean, I don't really care if it's whites or Jews perpetrating it. Like,
well, no, I mean, you specifically said like an experiment for. You specifically said it was an experiment for white people.
Right, and that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. And I don't know. I don't know which percentage of Jews are involved. I don't know. I guess I haven't looked into that deeply. But
I mean, it's pretty central to their religion.
Like, babies feeling pain. And babies in utero feel pain. I know you're saying they feel it differently, but like these arguments about coming from the medical community, I really think that a lot of your resources and community it's American. And, in American medical textbooks, often they don't even have any mention of foreskins unless it's regarding how to remove it. And like, if you look at medical, like there's really no major medical groups that even recommend it. And even that recent statement put out by the CDC where they said that the benefits can outweigh the risks or whatever. And like, that's just a logically untrue statement. It's actually a lie because, the risks include death. So they're literally saying that in their
okay. Well, the risk of being alive is a risk of death. Literally any time from the moment you are born, you are going from one circumstance to another that literally in a worst case scenario could involve death.
Right.
I mean,
so
for God's sake,
circumcision, you're okay with infanticide.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is literally any kind of medical procedure, regardless of what it is, has the potential of death That doesn't mean that it's going to do it. The potential of something happening, like, 1 out of 1,000 or something like that, does not mean that you are essentially condemning someone to death. I mean, for God's sake, like, Monty Ohm, one of the most beloved YouTube animators, died of a cat allergy. I'm not saying anything bad about cats, but it's something that can happen. You could die from literally anything. Like, you can die from appendicitis. You can die from an improperly cleaned bandage, or an improperly changed bandage. Like, it's not accurate to say that because you are, giving a child a circumcision, that you are condemning them to potential death. As much, like I said, from the moment we are born, we are potentially going to die any moment. We are mortal. We are fragile, delicate organisms. And you just have to look at the cost and the benefits and, just the circumstances. Infants dying from circumcision, that's not a statistically relevant or a significant group of people. It just doesn't.
So okay.
happen.
So I think I think I can paraphrase your argument, and I think that we can be on the same page. What you're saying is that, sure, maybe infants do die from being circumcised, and that's, a thing. And that's sad. But at the same time, people also die from fucking staph infections that can be transmitted through foreskins. And so, like, in the end, it's hard to say. Like, we can't really quantify what leads to more what based around health concerns, because there are actual health issues that can maybe somehow arise later in life, maybe.
And we do study the kind of things that lead to death, particularly in hospitals, because let me tell you, when someone dies in a hospital, particularly a baby, it's not like, oh, yeah, we lost another one. It's literally, oh my fucking God, a baby just died. What the hell just happened? And it is poured over and it is studied. You know what we spend most of our time doing in the medical profession? Paperwork, documentation. What did you do? How did this happen? Like, was this done? Why wasn't that done? But if babies were dying because in any causal relation to circumcision, it would be a known thing, because the loss of a baby, particularly in America, where like infant mortality is incredibly low, say again compared to the third world, it is no, as they say, like, to quote Game of Thrones, it is known, Khaleesi.
Right. Well, and that's one of the reasons it's so hard to track, is because what they do is they cite different kinds of reasons. It could be hemorrhaging, it could be something different. The other thing too is infant males they're much more vulnerable. They have weaker immune systems too. So what happens is you have these complications that are related.
I've never heard that.
Circumcision. So there are ways that they muddy the waters of it. If you look up the Bollinger study, Bollinger. He's the one who has the study that I think is the most cited, that cites like around 116 deaths on average. I forget what exact time period he used. There are some people who contest it, for some of the reasons I cited, because obviously we're dealing with like complications, meaning that they're going to cite multiple issues in the cause of death. And I guess you're more familiar with like the format of those kind of reports than I would be.
Yeah,
but the other issue too is I just wanted to respond to the argument that oh, you could die from anything. It's the exact same argument people make whenever you have a terrorist attack, and they say, oh, you guys are all freaking out over Islamic terrorism, but like, look at how many car accidents there are. Look at people struck by lightning. Look at cancer. And it's just whataboutism. The issue, what makes it different, is that this is something preventable. This is something that, like, imagine if for every single woman being raped, it would be prevented if her parents didn't consent to it. And basically, that's what we're looking at in the case of the United States, except it's worse than rape. It's part of your body being permanently removed without your consent.
People have their tonsils removed all the time. That doesn't necessarily mean the human body is not perfect.
Wait. Actually, that it's interesting that you say that. Somebody in the chat just brought up amputees, and they wanted to. What would you say, Katz, in response to this notion that, like, people get things removed, and there's a chance of things going wrong during the procedure, but then you would definitely die if you kept the limb on. Like, how would you? Wait.
So
Now,
you're saying how would I respond to like if
wait.
someone
Let me read let me read the comment again. Okay,
okay.
asking about amputations. Then those are unique to circumcision. Can't think of any other procedure that can cost a child his dick. Oh! I misread it, and
I mean, if you're gonna use that excuse, you can cut girls. Why can't we cut girls then? God knows they fucking need it. Look at the feminine hygiene aisle. Like, we could be cutting little girls and we could be saving them all the trouble from UTIs. Why aren't we giving them designer vaginas for their future husbands?
Okay, so I'm just going to say this, and I mean this in I don't mean this in a like aggressive way, but I think you are ignorant of biology in the case of women. The vagina hygiene is not an issue for vaginas in the same way that it is for a penis. The vagina is literally self-cleaning, and it's an internal organ. It's an entirely different kind of procedure. Yes, no, vaginas are. I'm not saying you can get sick. Anything can get dirty, but no, vaginas are largely self-cleaning. You've not heard of like refresh, like pH balance, like why douching is a bad thing because that smell that we talk about for vaginas, whether whether it's a good one or a bad one depending on the woman, that's literally the process of the vagina cleaning itself. Like, so no,
I've heard the same thing has been said about schmegma. And
no. That's completely different. Smegma is a cheese-like substance. It's literally like an external kind of. It's more closely related to like pus than it's not. It's literally a growth medium for bacteria. It is not something that the body is producing for any kind of good effect. It's essentially like it's more like a male yeast infection. Whereas the vagina literally secretes acid and enzymes in order to regulate the environment to prevent bacteria. The reason women get UTIs so much is not because of it has nothing to do with whether the vagina has been circumcised or not. The reason women get UTIs more often than men is because the urinary meatus, where they actually pee, is directly adjacent to the vagina, like to the actual, clitoris. Like I forget what movie it was, but it was really funny. It said, like, why on earth would God put a sewer pipe right next to a playground? I mean, like that's essentially why. Because when vaginas get UTIs when they become cross-contaminated by feces entering the by entering the vagina. It has nothing to do with whether if a woman was circumcised or not. That it is literally just removing in a much more significant portion, like the amount of tissue that's removed in a circumcision compared to, say, a female circumcision. It's like the difference between like getting kind of removing a fingernail, or not even a whole fingernail, like part of a fingernail, versus losing an entire finger.
Which type are you talking about?
It depends. Like if they're removing the lips, I'm not as familiar with, to be honest, on female circumcision, but I am familiar with the workings of sexual organs on men and women.
Okay, so then maybe you can tell me, because if you have either infibulation or part of the clitoris removed, I could see how that might be relevant in terms of preventing UTIs. Whereas the more minor versions of it, maybe not as much of an argument to be made, but I don't really know.
It makes.
But the point is like the chances of it are so low. Like of men who are left intact, the number of them who decide to get cut, it's ridiculously low. You mentioned earlier how like you've seen all these like different issues or whatever. The United States is notoriously bad at foreskin care. And it's particularly because a lot of nurses will tell parents to retract the foreskin. They'll like instruct them to do that despite like the baby screaming, and that's what'll cause a lot of it. It'll be fake phimosis diagnoses and stuff like that just to cover for what's essentially child molestation and just horrendous neglect.
Okay, are you accusing my entire profession of basically being involved in a conspiracy to hurt young boys?
No, I just think there's a lot of ignorance. And I don't know if it's like entire, but like because there are definitely people within the profession who are speaking out against it.
Because like earlier you were talking about how like when like our documentation, when we talk about like infant deaths from say circumcision, how like it sounded almost like you were saying that we fudge the we try to say it's like hemorrhaging or something else. And it's I'm detecting a slightly anti-medical bias. And I'm not trying to be defensive about it. I just want to be clear because I am familiar with the position, and I admit that I am biased since I am a member of the medical community in that sense. But as far as babies screaming, so I have not newborn, but I have very young nieces that are that I'm very close to. Babies scream about literally everything. It is impossible to tell if a baby is in pain or upset just by the fact that they are screaming. There are other things you have to look for. My nieces will scream till they are red in the face, and you will think that, like, when I babysat, I thought that they were dying many, many times. Now, I'm not saying that babies can't feel pain. Of course they can feel pain, but again, a baby is not neurologically developed in the same way that a person is, or a fully grown person. Of course, they're people, but it is not. It is not the same to say that like because a baby screams when you pull back the foreskin that they are in pain. Babies scream when they're disturbed. They scream when they have a bowel movement. They scream when they have gas. Babies scream.
Yeah,
period.
That's true. I will have to. It is
the same screams though. If you hear a comparison, you can hear the difference.
Yeah, but
that's subjective.
Derek, I have asked Katz about whether or not he's seen footage of babies being circumcised, and he is a nurse. Like he has.
We do see these things.
Yeah,
I have. Yeah, I haven't participated in one, but no, I mean, like it's. If you haven't seen or at least addressed the subject as a member of the medical community, then I would question where your degree came from, because these are all things we have to go over at some point or another.
Somebody in the chat mentioned something interesting. Oh, and hey, by the way, guys, if you guys want me to answer your questions or if you got something to say, super chats are a great way to do it. But somebody in the chat said something that is just a good point. How about the babies that pass out during the procedure? I didn't know about that. Is that a thing?
They go into shock. They go into shock because the pain is overwhelming. It's unbearable. And then the parents mistake that for, they went to sleep. No, their baby's in shock. That's what's happening.
No, I don't know if you're familiar with what it means when someone going into shock is not the same thing as becoming exhausted. Babies frequently cry and scream so hard that they become exhausted and fall asleep. That's actually one of a very common parenting technique with babies to help them sleep. You don't try to discourage or coddle them when they're crying. If you want them to go to bed, you literally just let them cry and scream as hard as possible so that they become tired and fall asleep. Babies literally have no other way to communicate when they're at a certain age other than to scream and cry for the most part. Like, so out of all the
parents cut off a little tiny bit of their son's penis every night to go to bed, and then the next night they cut off a tiny little bit more and they'll just save the penis so they can just use it to help sleep.
Again, I feel like you are.
I mean,
if I had to use a word to describe the way you talk about the foreskin, I would say it's like you seem to have fetishized it quite a bit, because it's not the entire penis. It's literally just a bit of skin, a bit of tissue that covers the gland.
That's the principle. That's the point. Like, what if it was the whole penis? In fact, sometimes it is if it's botched, right? Like, you'd agree that's a bad thing, right?
Well, if it's a botched surgery or a botched procedure is always a bad thing. That doesn't mean that the procedure is...
The goal is to botch it.
Wait. Let's let him answer the question.
Sorry.
It's all right. A botched procedure is a bad thing. but it's hyperbole to say that all of these procedures are just in of themselves botched. Like that's a, I mean, again, we're coming at this from very different perspectives. You are coming from the position that the penis is basically perfect the way it is. It represents man. It represents everything that, you know, is the man. And by removing that foreskin, you are violating the child and literally robbing him of his manhood. It's unusual because, to be honest, most cultures do not actually talk about the foreskin. If I had to pick one part of the penis, the penis is definitely associated with manhood, but the balls are much more associated with virility and, you know, manhood. I think what you're talking about would be more like if we were castrating infant boys, because, like, for instance, in Japan, virility is not measured in penis size. And now you could make the argument that's because, at least colloquially or to some extent statistically, Asian men are just not quite as gifted, let's say. And, you know, that there are reasons for that and it can change. But regardless, in Japan, virility is measured by the amount of semen that a man can produce, which is related directly to the testes. It has nothing to do with the size of the penis. A man with a small penis can produce an inordinate amount of semen, and a man with a large penis could, in theory, produce a very small amount of semen. Now, again, there are reasons for this: hydration, food, etc. But like I said, the foreskin, it's some peripheral tissue, and yeah, I mean, like it is what it is. It's there. It's essentially, I personally classify the foreskin in the same arena as, like, you know, the appendix. It's something that you have, that you're born with. Sometimes it works out fine for you to have it, and sometimes you may elect to remove it, either as a preventative measure or because it acts up. It's just easier to remove it when you're a baby and you're not fully able to process and not able to remember that, because we don't form intact memories until we get much older. I'd say maybe about the age of like 3 or 4 is when we start to be really able to actually recall memories. Babies don't even see the same way that we do. Like, for instance, if you were to show a baby a picture of a mother where the face is inverted, where, like, the nose is where the eye should be and the eyes and the ears are all screwed up, the baby can actually process the mother's face. We can't do that as grown-ups, but that's something that they're able to do, again, because the brain is still in the protean stage. It's not completely formatted yet.
Well, okay. Can we talk a little bit more about the subject of it seems to be that there's not a whole lot of agreement.
I think we're just at other ends of this, and I respect people. If people don't want to have the procedure, I think that's perfectly fine. I just don't think that it is. I understand where you're coming from, Spacepan, and
wait,
oh, go ahead.
Could you agree, though, that that intactivists, or whatever they're called, anti-circumcision activists, that they are making a good point, and that there is, like, okay, the default is circumcision in the United States, and I don't think I don't think that there's any good argument to be made that it should be the default. And now, I'm not willing to take things so far as to say that, like, you know, doctors should face any punishment for having done this procedure and that kind of a thing. But would you be willing to at least sort of compromise and say, like, okay, that could be addressed? Like, we should like, parents should have to pay for it themselves. It should be assumed that this isn't going to happen, and people should really be very well educated about the pros and the cons before they do it.
I mean, I've always, as a nurse, my job is to educate people. Like, that's
Uh-huh.
one of the responsibilities. So I've always in favor of education and people making informed decisions. Decisions made in ignorance or haste are usually regretted. I just think that, and by the way, I am not necessarily in favor of saying that, parents should have to pay for it themselves, just because I feel like if and this runs into the whole complicated thing though about insurance and what is elective and what isn't, and it gets to be pretty existential. Um, I just think that it's something that parents are going to make the decision based on their own culture. If they're not going to do it, then they're not going to do it. If you're going to do it when they're little. That's how I feel about it. I don't think that there is. And by the way, I'm not going out advocating saying, yes, we must circumcise all the babies, like remove the evil foreskin. Like I don't. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I don't really think that it's the existential threat to manhood that you Spacepan were talking about. I see your point of view. I just disagree with the severity of the threat. I think if you're a person that wants to have if you're a person that wishes you had a foreskin and you don't, I could understand how that would be frustrating. But their life, unfortunately, is a state of frustration. I mean, I wish that I might have been diagnosed with ADHD when I was younger and I could have gone to a better college. Like that, but at the end of the day, it happened and I can't go back in time. And my frustration with something that could or could not have happened and the theoretical course that my life would take based on that, I just don't think it's particularly useful. I think that all we can do is educate people and hope that they make a decision that resonates with them and is most practical for their lifestyle and does the least amount of harm.
I didn't feel, though, that... Okay, I definitely can totally see that angle regarding that people shouldn't dwell, about things that they can't change, that they've been living with their entire lives, and maybe they're more or less fine with. That's a good point, but still, this notion of you said that part of your job is educating people, and
yes,
I'm forced to believe you for the sake of having a civil discussion. But at the same,
it's literally part of nursing is
no,
patient
yeah,
education.
of course, yeah. But we do have a culture where circumcision is the norm in our nation, but not other Western nations, and Western developed nations, and there has to be some sort of reason for that. And so, there has to be this glaring pool of reasons that other people aren't, cutting off babies' wiener parts, and in my eyes, and it does kind of seem like
I think it's mostly preference, honestly.
No, let me finish my thought.
Oh, sorry.
And I think that when we think about education and what the anti-circumcision activists are trying to do is instill a more broad spectrum of education around the subject, as opposed to just we're doing it because that's how it's done here and that's how most girls prefer it here. Most girls like uncut dicks here. And it's like, well, I'm sure if you went to Spain, they wouldn't necessarily. That's kind of a weird. But
it's interesting that you
let me finish. Let me finish.
Oh, sorry, I'll mute myself.
I just want to say, if a girl says that, she should get punched in the face on the spot. Anyone, no restraint. Punch a bitch. She's bigger than me anyway. I can punch her.
So
sorry. Seriously, how do women feel that entitled that they
Okay, Derek.
Okay, so
I am trying to talk. this notion of, you know, we do this because this is an assumed thing that we do, and it is a very, very active choice. You have to tie the baby down when it's naked, like it's on the rack, like it's in some sort of, like if you watch that footage that's in the Red Pill movie, Red Pill documentary, if anybody hasn't seen it, watch it. They show footage of a baby being circumcised, and they have to tie it down like it's being tortured, and they don't give it any anesthetic because if maybe they
You
give,
can't give babies that
yeah,
kind of anesthesia.
yeah. You can't give babies anesthetic because people die when
They'll stop breathing.
yeah, they'll just stop because they're too small. So they start crying, and so you have to make this very, very tangible choice. And when people do it, like there's sort of the reason that people give babies the reason that this happens, it's not simply, oh, because that's a preference or whatever. The reason that it happens is because we live in a culture that has framed this as the expectation, and the parents don't watch this actually happen to their baby. And so if we were to have you know, a culture that said, hey, this isn't necessarily the expectation, this doesn't have to happen, like that's a serious decision that you should really actually actively make instead of passively make. Like this is not the default. Can you see how big of a difference that would make? And like, hey, if parents still want to make that choice after, then I personally am not going to be super invested in being an anti-circumcision activist. But until the default changes, I will support anti-circumcision activists, even if I think that some of the extremes that they take it are a little bit radical, because I don't think personally that the decision to do this should be the absolute default. Like we aren't in the third world. We That's what I'm taking from this after listening to this for a long time, and I have been paying attention to the chats a little bit, and I can't say that I have didn't already have my own bias, but yeah, that does sort of seem to be, like what's coming back to me is that there is arguments to be made, that it's not really all that bad, blah 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 blah. But that's about as far as it goes, is that it's not really all that bad. And so if it is not really all that bad, well, okay, but why does it need to be the default then? If the best you can say for it is that it's not really all that bad.
Are you talking to me or to Derek?
That's just sort of my thoughts in general. I'm sort of just rambling. I'm not really. But does that make sense though? Does that make?
No, I see where you're coming from. I mean, I guess my perspective is so. One thing I just wanted to clarify is my position is not that circumcising somebody is this abstract attack on masculinity. It's that it's a literal, physical, empirical attack on masculinity. You're literally cutting off a person's penis, like, and that reality alone is. Gosh, fucking damn it. Stupid real friends. But the whole point is that totally derailed me. The fucking doorbell rang. Oh my god. So oh yeah, so my point is that it's like saying to someone, hey, I'm sorry that things are set up in such a way that you are a victim of rape. Now, I don't want to take rape off the table, but I want to make it not the default. I want to make it not the default that your parents rape you. I want to leave it on the table, but I want to make sure that if they decide to rape you, because you're male, you don't have the same rights as your female counterparts. I just want to, you know what I mean? And it's like, what I'm looking at is that's where we're at. And like, I get that, like, if we can move it toward that, then that's an improvement. Mm-hmm. But that's why I'm at the other end, because I don't have any patience and I want to skip it. I want to skip all these chapters. I don't want to have like a 3 or 4 or 5 fucking wave men's movement. I want to do it in one. I mean, arguably we've already had those and they've just failed and not happened. But, you know, what I want is an equal standard. So any reason you're going to give to cut a baby male, fine, put that on the table to cut girls for the same reason. You know, and it looks like based on, you know, the decided reasons.
So what you're what you would like it
in the West.
What you would like is that infant male circumcision be banned in the same way that female genital mutilation is banned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
there's absolutely no question, and I don't understand even why it's an issue. I think that in the future, people are going to look back and they're going to be like, "Holy shit! How come Derek was the only one saying this? Like, he must have like, how did he not lose his fucking mind?" I really think that people are going to be on my side. The same way, it's like you could make the same argument about slavery. You could be like, "You're fucking crazy, Derek. You're just going to ban all the slaves and we're just going to pick all the cotton by ourselves." It's the same kind of shit. Anytime you have like a strong ethical paradigm shift, yeah, it's going to be extreme. It always comes with radicals first.
I feel like I should bring up the fact that it seems to be, we keep coming back to this, like the only real reason that I am talking about circumcision is not so much to say that I am a radical circumcisionist, but
you certainly aren't. That's definitely not true. I want to remind everybody that's watching this that our cat's gay is not like super pro circumcision. The main
I'm not trying to
issue.
I'm not trying
to. No. I know that. This is for the audience. This is not for you. The main reason this happened was just simply that this is not a debate for debate's sake. This is not entertain the audience with these people having this disagreement. This is the three of us having a major thing in common, which is that we're all men's rights advocates and we're all gay men and we all want to do something on YouTube. And this is a difference of opinion that I realized these two guys had coming into this, and I wanted to make the first episode about hashing out that difference of opinion, and that's all that this really is. It's not like this is going to continue, and the three of us are going to be friends, but we're going to have to, as the three of us, come to some sort of compromise, because like, okay, when I hear Derek say that it should be illegal in the same way that, you know, female genital mutilation is legal, I sit there and I think to myself, yeah, actually, I agree with that. But then I hear Katz talk and he's like, you know, medical professional and blah, 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 blah. And like, he says these things. And then it's like, yeah, well, no, that's true. And like, he sounds sincere and blah, blah, blah. And I really am literally thinking it's best for the three of us to come to some sort of a like working compromise about this issue. But I also think that what we should be sort of focusing on is like, okay, so this is a complicated one and maybe we're not going to take care of this, you know, the actual specific thing about the dick snipping tonight, but we should sort of reframe this conversation about whether or not that is the first issue that we should be focusing on as gay men's rights advocates. And before I get to that question, I got a super chat that said, even if it's painless, even if it's just skin, should the minimal benefits outweigh a child's ability to choose this future for themselves in the future? And yeah, that's a definite very valid question, because for me, I mean, it's always just sort of seemed like a logical no-brainer, which is that, you know, the people can always make the decision later if they really want to do it. And I know, you know, it would be maybe more convenient if they could just go back in time and have it done to them when they were babies and they wouldn't remember it, but then they wouldn't remember it enough to be able to make the decision later. So it's a paradox. And yeah, for me though, like I you know, I'm still totally on the side of no circumcision. But for the sake of argument, I want to move to reframe the discussion. Like I said before, our cat's gay. When we talked in private, he fully admitted that he can see that there's reasons why people would be anti-circumcision, and it's not that he doesn't understand the arguments. Like, he's aware of that. He's not like totally pro circumcision. He gets why people are against this, but he thinks that there's more pressing issues, and that that maybe this is like emblematic, and I guess he understands Derek's Spacepan's perspective a little bit more, and how it is more complicated. But what do you think are some more pressing issues, and why?
I personally think that male suicide in general, mental health, incarceration, unfair family court. I mean, like, pretty much like the red pill. Out of all the red pill, I don't know if I could even pick, just like for the move from that movie, one issue that was more important than the other. I mean, for heterosexual men, I would imagine family court would be the most direct one. For men in general, possibly mental health. The fact that men die much more frequently and there's just less support for men. Yeah, I mean, I just think that there are like, so yeah, coming from a health perspective, I would say, like, because of what I do, I think male mental health, and legal reforms in like family court and like anti-harassment suits, and just making sure that men are protected and that women don't have artificial advantages. Like a huge, maybe if I had to choose just one right now, I would say like the Title IX reform for rape accusations in college, because those are ruining young men's lives left and right. And there's no recourse for that. There's nothing. The closest thing we have is Betsy DeVos, and I have complicated feelings about the Trump administration.
She's just some billionaire.
Yeah, she's just some billionaire. Although I will say, in the same way, it is interesting, at the risk of sounding just a shade pro-Trump, it is interesting that Trump, whether it's something that he did or it was just the universe aligning correctly, was the only one who could get North Korea to say, okay, maybe we'll talk now. Whereas presidents prior have been doing the same thing with North Korea for decades and nothing ever happened. And in that same kind of, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, Betsy DeVos, the one who, like, people say she's not qualified, is the only one who had the balls, let's say, the ovaries, whatever, like, to say, like, Title IX, kangaroo rape courts. Yeah, this is baloney. That we need to get rid of this. And all of like the tenured academic, educational bureaucrats are like clutching their pearls, like, no, we need our rape tribunals. And so, so if I had to choose one, my final answer, Title IX reform.
Okay. And Derek, what would you say? I imagine you would probably say suicide too. But
yeah, I mean, it's on there. I mean, basically, men's rights issues are like Thanksgiving dinner, which is once you have all of them plotted on there, you can mix it all up, and because they all feed into each other.
That's a good way.
Yeah, just like you mentioned earlier, how you're kind of tying in circumcision to suicide, and I don't necessarily make that direct argument, but my argument is essentially that there's a root of essentially not caring as much about men and boys, and that's the overarching thing, right? So I say the empathy gap. If I have to name a single issue, that's kind of the core thing that all of the issues have in common, that I see as a lowest common denominator of men's issues, which is, and because it affects everything, it's literally the same as saying we just don't give it enough of a shit about men and boys. And it's not to say that women don't care enough about men. It's men and women don't care enough about men.
Society in general.
It's half a problem. So
mental health, basically.
Well, yeah, mental health is a huge part of it, but the empathy gap is also like, we don't care about the workplace death gap. We don't care about the fact that women have suffrage and men have a draft that's reciprocal to that same right, whereas women have nothing. Like, we don't care about, we don't care about a number of issues. We don't care about men's, the fact that they're more likely to be victims of violence. We barely just started measuring females who forcibly envelop men, which is to say, like, female perpetrated rapes against straight men. And it's shaky research, but it seems to show so far that there's gender parity. And that's when you don't include, I count circumcision as rape, but if you table that, don't count that. If you don't count prison rape either, table both of those, and then still it looks like we have gender parity in rape, which is like so supremely fucked up. So
I'm less familiar with that. I will say I disagree with the inclusion of circumcision of rape, but that's kind of now we're sort of getting into the epistemology of male issues, like in the same way the Council of Nicaea got together in, like, I think the 4th century, whatever, and they argued the finer points, like, okay, so what day did Jesus do what, and what color dress was Mary wearing when she was conceived? Like,
how many angels truly can dance on the head of a pin? I think that was actually a real.
Yeah, quite possibly. And that's what I mean when I say we're kind of getting into the ecumenical part of this, because I mean, we all agree on the big stuff. We all agree that men are undervalued in society, that they are viewed as disposable, and there are reasons for this and whatnot. But at the end of the day, we just want men to be treated fairly. We want everyone to be treated fairly, but we're focusing on men because it is
because
lopsided.
at every fucking place that you can possibly point to, men are being dicked around.
Totally.
And by the way, I just realized that I titled the stream. I put the I didn't put Gaytriarchy. Yeah, I didn't. I just realized that. And I'm gonna open up a beer now that we're not like because arguing just got debating. It got fucking tedious at a certain point. It's just like, okay, I think that we've sort of said everything, and
I think I think we've saturated.
I didn't mean like any like personal attack or anything. Those are just kind of like that's just my perspective on points. So I don't mean to direct personally at you or at like your profession or like insinuate that there's like a Jewish conspiracy that you guys are all in on.
I'm not actually Jewish, but thank you. No, I'm very. For any of you who've watched me before, I was in love with a Jewish boy, and I'm very aware of Jewishness, and because I'm weird and I'm nerdy, but no, I was more concerned about I was honestly more concerned about what sounded like a medical conspiracy than I was about a Jewish conspiracy, because conspiracies are conspiracies, I guess. But no, I didn't interpret anything personal from you.
So I'm uncut, and I might be a quarter Jewish from my dad's side. My mom is very white. She is 85% UK,
white with a capital H.
She's very white. She's 85%. She's 85%. Where's my fucking bottle opener thing? I'm gonna open a beer because I am drinking tonight.
Use the foreskin.
Yeah, it has a purpose. But Jesus, here's my fucking thing. But my dad might be a half Jewish, but we don't really know. It's never really been explained to me, and I like to say that my porn category would be uncut quarter Jew.
You realize that's not going to protect you from the ADL, right? They're fucking coming.
Yeah.
First, they came for the Nazis, and I said nothing because I wasn't a Nazi.
The ADL and the SPLC.
Yeah.
They're gonna try to they're gonna try to say that I was on an internet blood sports because Tonka duly broadcast the time that Cog baited me onto Cog's channel.
Stop talking about it. Then people are gonna find it, and then it's gonna be a thing. You should you need it to not be a thing.
No. I do want to make that known that like
that was against your will. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a trick. I was literally tricked onto having something that I did be broadcast on a channel that's going to be labeled as a hate group. I wasn't invited to that. I wasn't invited to that channel, but I ended up on it anyway because these people are scumbags.
Like, I respect that you don't want to be like YouTube Jesus and sacrifice yourself, but like but
I want you to, because
like straight up banning anybody associated with blood sports on it. Like, it'll piss off so many people, and like that will trigger the exodus. That will be like the big enough weight all at once that just makes everyone say fuck this noise. Like if PewDiePie had done that, PewDiePie could have done it. PewDiePie could have fucking
He
wrecked.
couldn't have done it right then, though.
Not to. He could have fucking done it. He didn't, but he might some. My greatest dream, by the way, I heard Joe Rogan like called PewDiePie like an asshole for saying the N-word on a stream or whatever. And like, I really want PewDiePie to go onto the Rogan Experience and then just look Joe Rogan like right in his eyes and just say, Joe Rogan, you're a, like, call him the N-word, and then just like walk off and just like leave Joe Rogan there for the other like 3 to 4 hours.
That would actually be
angry at him.
That would be actually really funny.
Sorry. So I had a question for our Cat's Cake. Can I wanted to ask about the
fuck
gig.
Is my lighter? Sorry, or my
Yes.
So okay, with mgtow, I like the concept.
Oh, that's what you wanted to. Okay, by the way, sorry.
Yeah.
The whole thing is that our Cat's Gay had a disagreement for you, and Derek wanted to praise mgtow.
And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's gays going their own way, saying that gay people, gay men specifically, because I don't really think lesbians count as gay, because they're lesbians.
They all want the D anyway.
Yeah, but gay men really should just, at this point, leave the LGBT plus QIA Pikachu alliance because they're all crazy and they hate us, so we don't need them. But yeah, what was your question? Or
that was the first thing I did want to clarify. So that's a good encapsulation of it, obviously, because you came up with it. But the other thing too that I like about it is that it actually mirrors. This is one thing that honey badgers bring up a lot, which is the whole where man woman thing, which is that you used to have pronouns. One was particular to men, one was particular to woman, and then man became this shared gender neutral one. And then what ended up happening is you had people doubling back to say, oh look, how come man is the default? Clearly this is patriarchy. When like really you can kind of see it the opposite way. It's a little bit like a vase or two faces kind of a thing, but you can totally see it as, but there's the added element of like the incorporation of the term girl, which was used to be gender neutral, and then the term boy, which meant slave, was applied to male. So that's that packaging of it. But then what you saw in gay identity was the exact same thing, like this really creepy parallel where like gay used to be for men, and then it became all inclusive, and then women were like, what the hell? How come gay means gay men by default? We have our own fucking word. We're lesbians now. Like, it's like literally like the same shit.
But they still say they're gay too, though. They still think that
they need both, right? Yeah, I mean they're people kind.
Yeah.
But then my question was, first I want to point out, because I thought that was interesting, just that parallel to like the man and woman and wereman saga. It's kind of like the gay remix of it. Like the Lisa Frank remix of that, and then the other thing was that it's mgtow. Obviously, it's like a rip on mgtow in a way, right? It's not a rip on, but like a riff.
It's a variation. I mean, I don't see it as the same thing per se. One of my, I think it's God, I always get his name wrong, but he always comments on all my videos, and he's really, really smart. Setsu something. If you're watching,
2 cents.
Oh, yeah, I thought for sure it was going to be NYC Korean mgtow. He's the most commentator on all of YouTube. Shout out to NYC Korean mgtow. NYC Korea is the greatest Korea. Sorry.
Wait. No, okay. So sorry. I just now that I got my beer, so the Critical Cracker has been needling me in the chat because I put what kind of issues that you need to put gay men's rights activists. He's curious, why is this a gay specific thing? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. For one, the gay male, this is also, I didn't answer the question about, I would agree overall that the circumcision is not necessarily my top priority, which is why I don't talk about it on my channel pretty much at all, like if you've noticed. But maybe it's easy for me because I do have I do have a foreskin. But gay men are facing a lot of problems at the moment, and there's various reasons. Suicide of gay men, especially in like our 30s or so, which is what I am, is up, and it's been going up very, very rapidly in recent years. Drug and alcohol problems have been going up. There's a lot of meth that is going around the gay community.
Oh god, so much meth.
And it had gone away for a while for the most part, and it was like last.
You didn't get any.
No, last decade. When I was like a mega hipster, like it doing meth was the like least. Like when I went out all the time, nobody did meth. Period. And then within the past, maybe 6-7 years, especially, it's came back with a vengeance, and like in all the big cities, like people are fucking doing it, and it's a very weird thing. And then
maybe it's the bad economy. It is cheap.
Yeah, and then STD rates are on the rise. People are having a lot of unprotected sex due to,
which is stupid,
due to the Truvada thing, and people are there's just a general massive amount of hopelessness amongst gay men, and gay men are writing articles about it. Like there's all sorts of articles about how gay men are unhappy. Like there was this really popular one, I think, written for the Huffington Post, called the gay loneliness epidemic. And yeah, the Huffington Post is a horrible publication and everything, but it's actually a somewhat decent article because it did get at a lot of things that were true, that were problems. And I think that those problems need to be addressed, but they are not being addressed correctly at all. They are being addressed either just completely taking shots and missing entirely, just like missing the mark, and or they're doing more harm than good when attempting to address them, and instead of actually addressing them, they're trying to attack toxic masculinity to solve gay men's problems or some shit like that. And that's obviously the exact opposite of what should be going on. And those same people who are doing that are also taking over our bars. They've already taken over all of our activist organizations and all of our our drug and alcohol counseling, because there are counseling and stuff, services for gay men, recovery groups for guys struggling with addictions, and groups for guys who are newly diagnosed with HIV and AIDS, and all things that are support mechanisms for issues that uniquely deal with gay men. And the thing is, gay men do need those things because it's hard for gay guys to, like, straight people. It's not so much just that gay men need those things more than straight people, which they kind of do. But straight people have more community support in the way that they can, like, go to some sort of church group or some shit like that. But it's harder for gay guys to do that. And so when gay guys go to the gay group that they had to make, because they had to make a gay one, they'll go to something that's run by fucking feminists 9 times out of 10.
And it didn't used to be that way.
And it didn't used to be that way. The feminists have totally taken over, and now they're taking over our bars, including our leather bars, which is like the last place that you would ever think that.
The leather bar. Once that falls, we're done.
Yeah, well, because
they're coming after the bathhouses too.
Yeah, they know and I think it's I was sort of thinking in my head, when I started this channel pre-election, I was thinking to myself that, like, we had to stop the feminists. We had to stop the feminists. There's no telling what was going to happen if Hillary Clinton was put into office and the feminists continued to try to take over, blah, 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 blah. There would be no, like, because they were already setting things up to, like, basically it was as if they're trying to make gay men go extinct, was what it kind of seemed like.
I'm glad she's dead. Oh, sorry. It's bad. Sorry.
So it seemed like they were trying to kind of, like, make gay men go I'm echoing. Hello? Someone Derek, I think that I'm echoing in your end. Could you mute yourself?
Yeah, I have this. Here, I'll mute it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it seemed like they're trying to make gay men go extinct. They're trying to shame us for our masculinity, and then shame us for having spaces for gay men. And then after they had already sort of like done that and like made gay men bend the knee, then they were trying to go so far as to say that gay men frequently sexually assault women, and like all of this weird wacky stuff. And just all of that stuff was such a big problem to me. And there's people who are actively fighting, and coupled to that, we know that gay men are committing a massive amount of suicide. We know that they have these drug and alcohol problems. We know that the disease rates are up. And I just think that there's going to be a breaking point, that there's going to be all of these problems with gay men. And eventually the only people that are really going to be dealing with them are going to be gay men themselves. There's like, you get to a point when you realize, after living as a gay man long enough, that nobody inherently gives a shit about you. Like, straight men at least like kind of have their family, but like gay men only got other gay men. And so if we can't take care of ourselves, who the fuck will? So that's what the purpose of this podcast is, and that's a major portion of why I started my channel. And yeah, I care about all men's issues, but there is a very unique thing that I think is being under addressed, which is the gay MRA perspective, which I think really should be developed a lot more. And yeah, I hope that answers the question.
I'm just doing it for the views. I want to be YouTube famous. No, that's not at all true. I'll never be YouTube famous. That's fine. Yeah, besides, is it funny, Prince, every time you and I are on a stream together somehow, like, or actually every stream
wait,
I'm
hold
on.
on. Sorry. Critical Cracker says, that's life, though. Life doesn't give a shit about anyone. Yeah, actually, life does give a shit about women, and families give a shit about women, and wives and their children give a shit about their dads. Not always, but sometimes, at least kind of a little bit. Gay men don't have that. And, dude, I know that just to you as an individual, you've come out as being bisexual, but you date women, you have a girlfriend, you don't know what it's like to never have the possibility that you are naturally going to organically create a family that's going to give a shit about you, and that's going to care for you and cook for you like a woman would, and these things. And I don't want to whine. It's like, whatever, I got over that reality sometime in my early to mid 20s. If I thought that life was so hard for me to be a gay guy, and then I realized, no, fucking whatever, I'm happy being as I am. However, this is a show designed to deal with the problems within gay reality. And it's not like, okay, it's not people's lives are hard. Absolutely true. Yeah, raising families is super, super hard. It's super, super hard to be a dad, for example. And people should have podcasts about parenting, for example. Well, gay men have problems that are unique to being gay men, and the fact that we don't have families, and that we do get diseases, and that we do have a high likelihood for drug and alcohol problems. That's what this podcast is about. And I don't think that should be all that hard to grasp.
I just saw myself as, when I say I'm a gay RMRA, and maybe this is just like a more spiritual self-identification, but to me, being a gay MRA just means that I'm a gay man who cares about men, and to me, all men, straight, gay, bisexual. I don't know if I care about other kin. I haven't decided yet. But to be fair, they don't identify as men. They identify as like centipedes and other strange things. So, yeah. But I just think that it's, to your point, Critical Cracker. Like life is an ocean of excrement that we all try to swim through, and you either you either stay afloat or you sink. Like, and that's true of everyone. I guess just the question is, like, it's a matter of degrees. Like, for men, it is a for men in general, it's different, and for gay men, it's just a different flavor of the issues that gay men go through are different than those that straight men go through. But I guess like my one subtle variation from you, Prince, at least for that particular statement, I don't know globally, is just that for me, I just see gay MRA as just a province in the United States of MRAs. But a distinct part, but still a part of a larger issue.
Yeah, and I kind of feel that more and more gay men are going to be coming over to this side of the fence very soon. Saint of Bacon just said, "I've honestly met gay men that were in SJW spaces that don't seem too happy about it. I feel bad for them because I realize it could have been me." And I was for several years. The spaces that I was involved in the San Francisco Bay Area were queer. They were mixed. They were mostly gay men, but
I don't like the queer thing.
Yeah, I would say they were probably when they first started, they were probably about 60% gay men, and then the rest lesbian, trans, and bisexual girls, and then more and more like straight people hung out, and then it just became a big SJW hodgepodge that where everyone called themselves queer, and more and more the gay white guys especially but really any attractive gay man especially started to become miserable. And it was this weird thing where like everybody was accused of being privileged and everybody was afraid to upset other people all the time. Like there was a lot of language policing and everybody was policed for their desires. Like if you were a hot black gay guy who could have sex with like hot white guys because you were hot, and this type of thing would happen. Like there I'm pretty positive, I can't remember that well, but I do remember this one friend of mine getting pissed off at racial minorities who would only date white people because he felt like they were like traitors. And it was like, dude, so you're not even just calling white guys racist for not dating, black and Asian guys or whatever, but you're going to do it to other racial minorities. Like, that's just annoying, like they can fucking take things too far. And so yeah, I'm just wondering. I'm starting to drink now a little bit, so I'm going to be
trailing.
Catch up. I actually probably have to go to sleep in a little bit soonish here, but
sleep is for straight people.
There was one thing though, actually. Critical Cracker made another good point in the chat, just about that. Like, yeah, there's the side of it that that gay men like have a particular sort of issue, but then also I guess bisexual men have their own bag of issues. You're saying they maybe didn't give quite enough consideration to that. The reason I think it's interesting is because I actually recall, I remember seeing like someone who was bisexual posting, because there's like the coming out day, and like it's the bisexual people who get the most excited about it in my experience, right? Because otherwise, like they're just totally invisible. Like otherwise, you never fucking know. So there's a sort of, they call it like the bi erasure, and I guess I can kind of see that they sort of like, and to some people that might be preferable, to some people that might be something that kind of bothers them, or that maybe it's difficult to process. But yeah,
it's a complicated issue, which I eventually want to do a video about it, but honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, because I have definitely in the past been guilty when I was younger and full of piss and vinegar and alcohol, mostly alcohol. I didn't really believe bisexual people, and it feels really stupid to say that, but I mean, like, I kind of thought that like bisexual people were not made up, but like, I thought bisexual women were either lesbians that didn't want to say they're like most. I just thought that bisexuals were like basically homosexuals that didn't want to say that they were, or people that were interested in attention, and that's just aside from not being nice, it's just not really true. I think now I do believe that there are differences. Like a man saying he's bisexual is a very strong statement. And the fact that it is a strong statement is worth bringing up because when women say they're bisexual, it barely makes a dent.
Every woman's a bisexual.
Yeah, they have to tell you
Yeah.
3 times, otherwise it doesn't count.
Well, I mean, like a woman saying she's bisexual, it doesn't seem like it carries a whole lot of baggage, really. For some people, it's just sort of like it's like talking about your star signs, like, oh yeah, I'm bisexual, unless she's like super like active, like activisty type. But then they're like, although like I don't think it's bisexual is considered. Actually, you know what? I don't think a modern day that would be interesting. Would a modern day intersectional feminist think that it was transphobic to say she was bisexual, since that imply a binary?
Yeah, that's why they say pansexual.
Oh God, so dumb. Oh.
Yeah, that's the thing they've already thought of. Oh, and for the record, I wanna point out that like this is the first episode of this podcasty thing, and this is just sort of the brainstorm hangout.
The birth.
Yeah, when the co-hosts meet each other and talk about the one disagreement that I know that they have, which I don't know if we'll ever. I'm sure Spacepan will bring it up occasionally because he's into it, but I want to bring on guests in the future. I want bisexual men to come on. I want girls to come on. I want it's an open format, but there is a unique perspective coming from gay men, and I'm not entirely against when somebody makes the criticism that something is identity politics, and that's used to sort of just belittle it, like say, oh, that's identity politics, as if that's a bad thing.
It can be.
It can be if it's politics. If we're talking about a national election and all people are caring about is what's best for the gays, or like who's offering the most like immediate reward for the gays, like who's saying that they're gonna give free ponies to gay people or whatever, like then that's fucking identity politics, and that's stupid. Or who's trying to say that the other candidate is homophobic and blah 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 blah, like that's a problem and that's annoying. But like ultimately there is a time and a place for every population to talk about the social issues that are distinct to their population. Like as cringy as I might find it, if some YouTubers wanted to have some sort of a what would be a black people podcast called like Ebony and Mocha or something, I don't know. That was the name of the party that I put in a video. That was a hypothetical. I would find that kind of cringe. I would maybe make fun of it, but at the same time I wouldn't fault them for like potentially wanting to do that. Like if some black guy, that guy T, and your boy Pat and Satsu 2 Cents wanted to have a like black guy anti SJW live stream thing, I would say more power to them. That'd be cool. Why not? And maybe you could say it's identity politics, or you could say it's marketing.
I think
I
think a good conversation, like an actual good conversation, is always worth it, no matter who's having it. I think when it becomes what people think of as identity politics is when it becomes just a shit show. Where literally, like, to come back to what you're talking about, like the cringy, like say all black podcast. It'd be one thing if if you have like black people getting together and talking about being black. That's awesome. I mean, like, well, I don't know, awesome, but like that's a thing. Of course, people are going to talk about it. Just like we're gay, talking about being gay. If you've got a bunch of black people or a bunch of gay people talking about like like all just piling on like, oh, fuck white people or fuck straight people, it's like then that becomes identity politics. I think what people think of it is identity politics when like it's like you form a common group just so you can lash out at an out group. I think that's what people mean when they say identity politics, even though there is a useful aspect to actual identity politics. But like anything, all good ideas can be used poorly by idiots.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, if one were to, there's truth to what SJWs say when they demonize. Like I hate this, but when SJWs demonize people for wanting to be colorblind, they are actually making a good point, because people aren't colorblind. People do see race and they do care about race. People do, like, like, yeah, we should aspire to live in a world where race wouldn't matter, but we don't live in that world, and therefore we shouldn't pretend like we do, because if we did, that would be lying. The same the same goes for homosexuality. Things are there is there's a lot going on for gay men in the gay male community, and that the problems that are not only distinctly facing gay men at this moment in the very very tangible sense in the current year, but they're being ignored, and they're also being blamed on things that aren't the fault of them. Like, they're blamed on the culprit of the problem is blaming the person that's trying to help. It's like that goddamn Madonna video for Like of Prayer, when the black Jesus tries to save Madonna when she's getting stabbed, and then he gets blamed for the crime. The patriarchy's trying to save gay men, and then the patriarchy gets blamed.
Oh my god. Yeah, again.
Sorry.
This is why I can always say Gaytriarchy. It is we if this is Star Wars, Gaytriarchy is the escape pod. We need to get off the Death Star before it explodes. And SJWs and especially LGBT, that is the fucking Death Star.
That was actually the question I was gonna ask, is that with Gaytriarchy, it invites you to try to imagine like a gay translation of mgtow, which is really funny to try to imagine. Like are all of like the butcher gay men mgtowing from like the femme gays, right? But like obviously that's not the point of it. But like it's just like a funny image. Like it'd be a great approach, like a cartoon or something.
Oh, you reminded me of, like, I brought up Setsu, and he was talking about that. Like, he didn't like mgtow because it was too associated with relationship, which
I
is
love
not exactly.
mgtow. I'm an enthusiastic mgtow supporter.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where it comes from. I don't think it's. I think that it is warranted in some situations. I don't know if it's a great permanent lifestyle choice, depending on the degree of it. Just because, I mean, this is veering off into another interesting place. So yeah, if you're a mgtow and you still want to have sex with women, I think if you're a mgtow and you still want to have relationships with women, but you disagree with the social mandates of, forming a, legally binding permanent relationship with women, having children, marriage, all that. If you decide that, that's just not for you, you want your independence, I think that's perfectly fine. I think when you get to the point where you start talking about how women are just like, cum sucking blood whores that want your money and like to steal your soul. I mean, that's I think at that point where, again, some of these guys have legitimate reasons to feel this way. I don't know if I would say that it's hashtag not all women, of course, like, because there are harpies and there are angels, just like there are some gay guys that are amazing, and then there are some gay guys that you want to just completely you want to hate crime them because they are so awful. That's a terrible joke, but
hey, by the way, Black Knight Fool, the message that you're sending me on Patreon is it doesn't work. Like the link doesn't work somehow. It's a broken link. I don't know what's going on. So I've clicked on it. It's just not working. Sorry, keep going.
I just want to say I'm really glad you brought that up about the whole like black pill element of it. So this might be another spicy thing I have to say. I actually really, really support that rhetoric. Like I am totally all for people who want to just go up and say, you know what? I think women are just retarded. I think they can't do it. I think that they've been fucking being parasized the whole time. Like I say, you know what? Throw it out there, get it out there and say it. Because we do afford women that space to kind of do a little bit of that man hating, right? And it kind of went on for like 3 freaking waves without anyone really caring. Men are still here, right? Women are going to survive it too. And what I want is for women to, instead of hearing that and then going, oh my God, this is just evidence of the patriarchy and this is why I can't get ahead, to just say, hey, fuck you. I'm going to prove you wrong, right? And like, I want to see the women's movement that says, this isn't a women's movement about what women can do for ourselves and what women can demand from society and what women can demand and procure from men through the fucking government. I want a women's movement that says, you know what? We're going to nut up and we're going to fucking do something. And you know what, men? Yeah, like kick your feet up for a fucking second. Like we're going to fucking get some of this shit done. We're going to actually prove it. And like that has not been the narrative. Like, and right now, if you look at the record, look at the first 3 waves of the women's movement, this is permanent. It's a permanent part of women's history is that the movement that was for them that they endorsed just celebrates and immortalizes their victimhood. So women, you have 3 waves that failed. Can the 4th one fix it? I don't know. Remains to be seen. I'm optimistic. I might be, a little bit unrealistic though. So
wait, Derek, can you? Okay, Derek, I want you to quickly repeat something. And after you do, we have a question in the chat. That's a good question that I want to be addressed. Do you remember that line that I made you edit out of your guest video?
Oh, I know it was a joke about lesbians. I actually edited out a few things. There were
no. There was one that it was.
I put echoes around lesbians.
It wasn't. No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was the thing about the. Personally, as a radical MRA, I don't give a fuck about what society.
I'm something like that.
But it was something to the. I wanted to, okay, you don't remember it very well, but like it was something to the effect of. Now, as a radical MRA, I personally could not give less of a shit what society can do for women, and for the record, I don't believe. And if anyone wants to argue with me that, we'll tell women that I don't think that they're too fucking retarded that they can't fight the next goddamn war. Okay?
Yeah, exactly. That's what, it's like, bitch, you fight the next war, right? And like, and it's basically, I want to be like a gay remix of Paul Elam in that way, because that was a lot of like, he made that sentiment. He was like, you know what? I want to hear about what we should do for women. Sweet fuck all. And it's like, it's so fucking funny because if you're familiar with the history of this gender conversation, like it's so appropriate. It's so fucking appropriate. Like, what else could you possibly say? Looking at the women's room, just like, yeah, I'm tired of this shit. Like, I don't even believe it. I'm like literally so fucking jaded. I don't. Like, now it's at the point where everyone's like, okay, if someone got raped and they went to the media first, it's false. We don't even fucking care anymore. It's like, it's false. We're just like, because we're so fucking sick of this shit. We're so jaded.
Did you guys watch my video that I made a few days ago called, it was probably like a week ago, called, but I want to be able to falsely accuse and a pony. So
okay, I looked a bit about whether or not women are capable of lying. Like, that's how fucking retarded are.
Okay, the thing about that, that video, which was particularly funny, is that like the thread that the back and forth between the black guy and the girl, when he posted about this white woman who had accused 3 black men of rape, and then they found out that she was just making it all up, and then she didn't face any jail time of it. And this white woman chimed in to say, that's fucked up because it means that people will be less likely to believe me, basically, is what she said. And then he was like, oh, I guess that's true. And for the record, I've been falsely accused. And she like didn't really say anything. Like she didn't like that. She literally said, so fucked up. That's like all she said.
Oh my God. White feminists are my favorite people. Like white female feminists. They're so freaking easy to troll because they know the suffragettes were racist whores, and then they know that the second wave was like a white women's movement, and that like the black women tried to form womanism, and like it's been an ongoing thing. It's so freaking funny how nakedly, transparently racist they are, and I just think it's funny because who cares?
Well, okay, so the funny thing about that was that what I didn't include is that I popped in there immediately after and got in a big argument with this cunt, and it went on for pages, you know, like it went on for hours. Apparently she was at some sort of airport bar getting drunk while arguing with me, so she just like lost all of her composure. And the guy had already mentioned, okay, first of all, I know that he's sick of feminists. He's a good looking guy, like he's an attractive guy that dates a lot of white women, and like he's cool, you know? And I have been able to tell from his posts that he is skeptical of feminism, but he lives in like he probably lives in Oakland or someplace where everybody's a feminist. And so he has all these fucking like white feminist bitches all over his Facebook because he's like a DJ and stuff. He knows lots and lots of people. But at the same time, these, like, I think that he doesn't like them. Like, I think that he's aware that these fucking women are awful, and he's trying to like be like, hey, by the way, I'm a black dude, and they're gonna fucking make up some lies about me, and y'all bitches are gonna believe them, you know? So this woman started like she tried to have a Facebook feminist fit on me, which is, you know, when they start being really hyperbolic and just posting nonstop over and over and over. And she and it got to the point where she was like, well, I've been raped and people didn't believe me, and I was just like, I don't care. I think you're lying. And she was like, what did you just say? And she starts taking the guy, and like, you can take him all you want. I'll take him. I think that your friend is lying. And even if she's not lying, I still don't care, because I have compassion fatigue. Like, I am so sick of random women on Facebook just trying to throw out their little alleged rape, like people that I don't know,
well,
pulling
the word
out
rape is so meaningless now.
It's like some women that I don't.
Wolfing. We all know that story. Nobody learned the goddamn lesson. Don't cry wolf.
Yeah, and it's like women that I don't know trying to somehow emotionally manipulate the entire internet by throwing out something that we have no idea whether or not it actually happened. By the way, Derek, you're echoing again.
Really? I mean, the shit's all muted. Sorry, let me fix this.
Are you sure it's not your headphones, Prince?
No, it's I'm hearing it.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I hear it.
Yeah, when I hear it with myself, which doesn't happen when it's me.
Oh.
So
maybe I thought it's my own audio and there's like an internet delay. That's the only explanation I can think of. But I'll just try to mute when I'm not talking. That'll solve it.
But yeah, it was so satisfying to know that my friend on Facebook wasn't going to side against me and unfriend me because he's been falsely accused, and to have this fucking little princess ass white bitch being like, but wait, your friend is saying that he doesn't believe me, and he can't say that, and I'm like, bitch, I can. And first of all, and even if you did get raped, I don't care. I don't have to care.
And then her head exploded.
Yeah, she just didn't know what to do. And it was awesome. Like, it's awesome. We have made progress in the men's movement when I can have that moment, when she can be like thinking that she can stamp her feet and throw a tantrum on Facebook, and that this guy's going to unfriend me, and then he just doesn't.
I think the men's movement will have truly succeeded when like that. Remember that woman that had made, like, what was it, like 8 false rape allegations or something like that?
It was 15.
15. So yeah, when the men's movement will have finally succeeded when that woman, like, when she does that, she isn't just, you know, on the news. She's actually taken to a firing squad and shot.
Yeah.
Dark.
I mean, the way I see it though is like the men's movement. All of the criticism has been on the grounds of tone, essentially. There's been very, very, very little refutation of the talking points that MRAs have. And that's one reason I'm personally a little bit sloppy with the talking points, because I feel like that wheel's been made, and that's why I like point people to so many other videos and references, because like it's a synthesis of that. I'm starting with the shit they gave me, and then pulling what I hope is a little bit of a new analysis, a new spin on it. But like the whole point is that it's all tone policing, and what that inevitably means is that if these issues are legitimate, you know, historically, truthfully speaking, anybody who's concerned with the truth, you're going to be able to make that case that like, look, here's this massive body of issues. They've been totally ignored. So then you point to this men's rights movement and like, let's say it's just totally fumbled. It's this weird, cringy, whatever. At least these are the fuckers who showed up, right? Like who the fuck are you to act like you're fucking cooler than them? At least they showed up to this fight, and like it's an extremely worthy battle. And like I think that compared to any other cause, I think that nothing else is like it. Like this is the reason that I got so into this particular one, is because of just how extreme and far-reaching and broad and deep so many of these issues are. Because obviously, when you get gender, that affects all humans. You're either that gender or not in terms of the binary. So it's so much more constantly relevant and constantly bleeding into so many issues. And that when you have this radically shifted perspective that the red pill offers, it changes the way you see the entire world, and there's no going back. So basically, no matter what MRAs do, no matter what tone prevails, they're going to be vindicated based on just the strength of the issues by itself. Like there's always going to be an argument to be made, even if they fucked it up.
So
if that made sense. I don't know how relevant that was. Sorry, I just wanted to get that out.
No, it's interesting. I wanted to go back to the question that I had before. Is the thing. Somebody in the chat asked, Gaytriarchy is cool and all, but how do we make it happen or something? I don't remember. I don't remember what the question was exactly, but I think it was just basically something to the effect of, what is the next step for Gaytriarchy? And okay, well, obviously, just at the moment, it's getting the word out that there's other guys who feel this way, and that we have a critical mass that could, say, yeah, that there is an alternative. Because, like, okay, I've been making videos for a long time at this point. It's coming up on 2 years. It'll be 2 years in June, but it won't be till August that I was really making a lot of videos and actually like saying my voice. I think I made my first audio voice video in August or late July or something. And when I started, it took a long time to get traction, and I was the first of the YouTubers that are like me, and I know I'm not the only gay guy. There's Dave Rubin, there's Milo Yiannopoulos, and there's that one British guy who hates Islam. I forget his name, but
Robinson.
No, there's another one. He's older.
Jada Franson.
Huh?
She's my favorite.
I don't remember. But no, the thing is that I'm out of all of the of like Milo and Dave Rubin, I'm the only one that actually like really, really talks about the gay community a lot. Like Dave Rubin, Dave
Republican or on that spectrum.
Dave, yeah, but I mean, whatever. But I'm certainly not. I would consider myself quite similar politically to Dave Rubin, but ultimately, like Dave Rubin might as well be straight, and Milo acts super gay, but he never talks about gay men.
He doesn't like us very much, from what I understand. He prefers straight dudes. Like I think I don't know if it's a real quote or not, but I remember him saying in a quote, which if it's wrong, I apologize. But as I understand it, he says that gay men are kind of ineffectual, and he prefers straight men because they actually get shit done, to his words. But he's a complicated, self-loathing dude, so it's hard to know.
Well, I don't know. I don't even care about picking apart Milo's brain. I'm sure I would actually have a lot of fun with Milo if I hung out with him. Like, I'm sure I would actually get along I'm sure we would have a lot to talk about and have some fun with each other.
Oh,
But,
it'd be a blast. It'd be mandatory. I think anyone who hangs out with Milo, there's like no way you're not having fun.
Although that would make a great reality show, Prince of Queens and Milo like take on Vegas or something like that.
yeah, but regardless, you know, since I have made my channel, I have met people like the Liberal Hammer, who has not been around that much. I've met Derek, who I don't Spacepan, who I'm not sure if we met before or after my channel. It's hard to remember, but it was right around the same time as when I first made it. I've met our cat's
We were
gay.
friends right when you started it.
Yeah, I think something like that. It was like right when I was like right when I fully committed to just hating feminists. I think that was when Cat Black doxed me. Was when it was like that was the big problem, which is a story that I don't want to get into. But
The first video of yours I saw had an automated voice in it, and I was like, those are my favorite videos because it reminds me of Bane666 AU's original videos. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm like, dude, no, you're doing the same shit like the OG, like MRAs did, and you're like, everybody hates it.
Yeah, people hated
it about that. I was still like, no, why can't YouTube be all robot voices? Fuck the community.
Should I re-release? I should do that. I should make
a robot channel. Just do.
I should do on the 2-year anniversary. I'll re-release a robot video.
I've never seen one of your robot videos. I didn't know you did.
They're my first ones. I'll do a new robot video. Yeah,
use like Zabaware or some shit.
Yeah, I don't even remember what program. I would have to like find the program. I don't remember what it is. But
you also just change the pitch on your audio recording or the tempo. Like
I did that with the first couple of videos. But regardless, okay, I want to go back to the question. So I made my channel and I started, you know, talking about how the gay male community, you know, is taken over by feminists and that needs to stop. And sort of the natural logical progression ended up being Gaytriarchy. Like that was sort of like, it's like, okay, well, we need to sort of separate and focus on ourselves. And the level of separation is something that there is a little bit of a debate too. But I mean, ultimately, yeah, like we need to at least say we don't care what you think about me, you know, in the same way that I told that girl who was like, but I was raped, and I'm like, you know, even if you were, I don't care. We need to say that to the fucking lesbians and trans people, like, but we have issues. Well, even if you do, we don't have to care. And so that's what I started when I made my channel. That was sort of like what I was on about, and this ended up. Derek, could you mute yourself? Here, I'll mute you. So it ended up culminating into this Gaytriarchy thing, but it took a very, very long time, and a lot of channels started as a result of these things sort of like floating through the airwaves. And what we need to do right now is just get more guys to kind of like come out as basically being Gaytriarchs, about basically being gay men who care more about men than women and are willing to say that. And it's not that hard to, it shouldn't be that big of a deal to be like, hey, I'm a gay male and I care more about gay men than I do about women and trans people. But like, oh boy, go to a gay bar and try to get someone to say that really loud. You'll have a really tough time.
See, for me, instead of saying that we don't care about them, the way I approach it, I mean, that is a valid way to do it. But the way I approach it is more to say that, like, I don't recognize the kinship. Like, I just say gay is gay. Homosexual men are gays. We're not the same thing as lesbians. We're not the same thing as trans people. We're kind of like bisexual people, but they're different too. I mean, honestly, I was talking to Sana Bacon about this, and I said, I think that if we're going to approach LGBT, which is still a useful political alliance, but as far as a culture goes, we need to leave. We need to leave this party and come back, like, and say we'll come back, but we need to come from a position of strength. Because right now, we're operating as if we're not even a province, but almost like just like an occupied territory. At this point, we become like, Puerto Rico or Palestine or any number of like, territories that are dependent on a larger power. We need to come back to LGBT. If we're going to come back to LGBT, which I'm not convinced we have to do, but if we're going to do that, we need to come as sovereigns and say, that starts with us saying, we don't recognize your authority over us. We don't have to care what you say because we are not you. We are we, and you are something else.
But first, sorry, I turned off my camera. First, we do need to make sure that there's a we, right? Like we have to come out and get guys to come forward as a we and as like identify each other so that they realize that there's a lot of us, because I know there's a lot of us. Like I get guys in my comments and private messages and tweets and blah 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 blah. It's hard for me to know how many. I know it's well over 100 by now, but it's really hard to know. And the other thing is that YouTube has been fucking with me so hard for so long, and the current crap that we're going through is maybe some of the most weird, shady, diabolical crap that I can't even get into what specifically that YouTube is doing to target content creators that they don't like, but it's fucking intense and it's hard to know how organized it is. But they target me so much that my mgtow video that I released that was just like me kind of drunk, kind of ranting, they completely rid that from the search function. It's not technically in limited state as far as I know. But you can't, like, if you search, maybe it's in limited state and I just don't remember getting the notification for it. But like, if you do a search for hashtag mgtow, my video doesn't show up, period.
Does mine come up?
No, the only one who does is Saint of Bacon's.
That's really weird. I wanted to offer a thought, if it's okay, regarding this is something that came up earlier, which is like, what's the starting point for mgtow? And like, if you think about mgtow, it's a highly individualistic thing. It's really hard to pin down any one particular thing on mgtow. Like back in 2015, they had a huge severing in that community over whether or not a married man could consider himself mgtow. And the ones who were staunchly saying like, no, you can't fucking be married, like being against marriage is the fucking point. Yeah. They were called pigtow, right? Derisively by the other more traditional mgtow, right? But my point is, as far as mgtow is concerned, the first step should be an individual one. It should be, I think, any gay male who recognizes that they don't want to be associated on a spectrum with lesbians, bis, trans, queers, and two-spirit and everyone else. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Wait, I don't quite...
I think what he's saying is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Spacepan, but so you're saying that like mgtows, for a person to come out as mgtow, they have to understand that like it can mean different things. The way you become a mgtow is really just your individual expression. It's not so much about the finer points, like how you do it isn't so important as the fact that you just identify on some basic level that being gay is unique and not the same as the others, and we don't have to listen to them necessarily.
Yeah, and it's a Big Ten thing, and that's kind of the idea, is there's sort of a lowest common denominator of it, but then it's also inviting people to kind of make it their own thing if they want to. Because, for example, to some people, mgtow means like going full monk. To others, it doesn't quite mean that, right? And I feel like if insofar as mgtow, I don't know if it necessarily wants to have any kind of mirror to mgtow, because it is fundamentally different. It's just kind of a catchy riff off of the same thing. But there are some elements of mgtow that I think are actually really fascinating, and I think that it organically develops, is my point, is that we don't have to do that much work, I don't think, from the top down, because there's a lot of ways to kind of build something from just having a really open base that allows people to kind of build it themselves.
and I think you want to avoid getting too particular about things because, like, if you have like as you say, an umbrella term, an umbrella movement, it invites people to come in and share their interpretations, and to get together. If you get to be too specific about, like, like, okay, so what kind of gigtail are you? Like, if that's not on the approved list, well, then it's over before it started. That's when you start getting into like feminism, I mean, oh my god, if you want to get brain cancer and laugh, watch a feminist conference and just listen to them, like, just cannibalize each other. It's like, because if feminists never outright say, like, oh, you're stupid, it's like, I hear you and I acknowledge that, but I think that you haven't centered this, and for that reason it's problem. And just like, how to
Depends
spend
on which
hashtag
one you're talking to, and depends on what you're saying to them.
true.
Like
True.
if you let them know very, very quickly and clearly that you know their arguments and that you aren't going to tolerate any of that. Like, if you're like, okay, I know what you're going to say about patriarchy, and I'm already going to debunk it before you say it. If you make that clear to them, they'll just start swearing at you.
But not at a conference, probably, with other feminists, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, feminists,
Sorry,
like,
I was like
yeah.
half paying attention, half doing something. Sorry.
No, it's
I'm
funny
not
though.
important.
They do that. They do that shit just on Facebook too. And like I've had it happen to me at least like a fucking dozen times because basically I went through undergraduate college and then I had all these Facebook friends and then I discovered the men's rights shit later. And I'm not like other people. Like I just fucking post what I think. I don't give a fuck. I get banned on Facebook all the fucking time. I don't give a fuck. I fucking let everyone fucking know. If somebody like tries to contact my employer and get me fired, it's like, you know what? If they're gonna fire me because I like stood up for something I believe in, it's like, you guys are fucking spineless. I'll fucking find some other way to make money. I'll fucking figure it out. But so anyway, they'll confront me and they do this thing exactly like he described it, where they'll frame it as though like they're trying to help you, right? They'll be like, oh, hey, I think you have a lot of pent up anger and a lot of issues. If you read this bell hooks, you'll find balance, man. So then I'll kind of like play along with them, like, oh yeah, like bell hooks, I'm a little bit familiar. Like, what do you think of this and that thing she said, right? And I'll be like, oh, well, how about this? Like, how about I'll read this Bell Hooks book you're talking about and you watch the Red Pill documentary? And they're like, excuse me, bitch. We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you and your issues, right? Like, the mask will fucking fall off if you play the game long enough. But yeah, they're all a bunch of bitches.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, once they realize that you're not going to put up with their shit, and even further than that, that you can expose their passive aggressiveness and make people make embarrass them, then yeah, the mask will fall off. What one of the things I've noticed that they'll say is that let's say you have a friend, I still have probably at least 500 self-identified feminists as friends on Facebook. And they'll post stupid articles, every now and again. It's International Women's Day, and I usually just sort of don't really care about most of the things that get posted on that day. But
they're both posting days now.
Occasionally, I will decide that I might as well actually say something, and I might as well actually make a comment under one of these people's fucking stupid posts because it's just that fucking stupid, And when I do, it's usually at least a whole paragraph long because it's just that fucking stupid that I just had that much to say, And then some friend of my friend ends up posting under my comment in a reply, and they say something like, "Who hurt you?" And that's happened numerous times. Like, it's happened at least 3 or 4 or 5 times that they literally just say, "Who hurt you?" And at first I tried to be like, "God, you're a cunt." And then they'll be like, "No, I'm legitimately, I'm worried about you." And it's like, okay, no, you never are. You're being a cunt. You might as well be a little girl on the playground, chasing me around, trying to kiss me so that I'll get annoyed and hit you so that you can cry and tell the teacher or something. You know what I mean? But I realized that the perfect response, just by the way, if a feminist ever tells you who hurt you, ever says who hurt you on the internet, as a condescending way of saying that you have anger and that blah blah blah, just say your father.
Actually, a good follow-up to that. There's a catalog of anti-male shaming techniques, and that's one of them. Yeah, this dude, and this shit was back from like fucking 2012. That's how common and formulaic this shit, and that's why I have so little patience, because it's just like it's happened so many times, so that like literally I could be like, oh, like I can link them this catalog and be like, this is code fucking orange. Like this shit you're doing, this is the catalog that's like 5 to 10 fucking years old, and like I can just point it out and be like, here's this thing you just did. I mean, it's kind of like pointing out logical fallacies, but like it's so like pointed and obvious and formulaic and just like nakedly obvious how just dishonest and manipulative it is. That the feminist of anti-male shaming tactics. I can find a link for.
Yeah, was the response said to the question when they say who hurt you? The response is your father.
Well, I don't know if they have that. I don't know if but they do a more serious breakdown. But like,
because so yeah, I'm just saying it's because it works. They get annoyed when you.
That is such a seriously condescending kind of response, though. Like when you say something that they don't like, they immediately like they try to side rail you by saying that like, well, the only reason you would say something like that is if you were fundamentally damaged.
Yeah,
which is super screwed up. It's sort of like, I think it's kind of like it's the female equivalent to like if a woman was having a bad day and you said like, oh, are you on your period? You know, it's like, it's just such a condescending thing to say if a woman is angry, to just assume that she's menstruating. Like, you know, why would you assume that because a man has an issue that he was damaged or he was abused? Like, that's just dumb.
Yeah.
And I think rather intellectually dishonest.
Yeah, it is, and it's it could only come from the people who are reaping the benefits of a political movement that carved out the hearts of the metaphorical people that they've hurt and are now feasting upon it, and they are feasting upon it and laughing at anybody, laughing at the children of the dead people whose hearts they're eating. Like, that's the level of cruelness that this is.
If this was an animated podcast, that'd be quite an image.
Someday.
Oh, you got a major super chat.
It's not a major super chat, but it is. Thank you from Rump Roswitch gave me $10. And didn't ask me to say anything out loud. I appreciate it very much.
Roswitch means. Somebody mentioned rump in the chat, and I was like, what does that mean? And like Rump Roswitch, and I was like, I'm more confused, but now I know it's a person. Sorry, I'm just really happy that I caught up.
To the rump.
They gave us $10. That's so awesome. That's so nice of them. And they didn't even leave a message. Rump Roswitch, if you have a message, go ahead and put it in the super chat. We'll say it for you.
Technically, it's me that they gave the money to.
I was going to say
because at this moment, this is not a joint venture, but we could maybe change it to that at some point in the future.
You need the money more than I do.
I always need the money more than everyone. Not because I'm poor, but because I'm greedy.
And fabulous.
Hey, man, greed is a need. And that's true because it rhymes.
Okay, gay Ayn Rand.
I don't get that reference.
Ayn Rand, you know, capitalism. Oh. Yeah.
God, there has to be like a pun for that.
Ayn Rand.
Gain Rand.
Gain Rand. It's so close. Oh, Ein Fag Rand or Ein Fag is almost closer, you know. Is that gonna get you banned again? I'm gonna be the one who you bring onto a thing, and I'm gonna like accidentally say the N-word and then get you banned from saying like doing streams forever. I'm just saying it because I want it to not happen.
So if Ayn Rand says something really nasty to you about your gender, is she objectifying you? That's really.
Yeah, it's double. It's twice as bad when she does it.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to explain that. I was such a bad.
Okay, but this reminds me. I have $1 million idea. Like, this is something that every single person who ever streams on YouTube should start doing, and it should become part of a culture. Are you guys ready for this? This is like some Shark Tank shit. Are you ready? And you're gonna be the first ones to hear it because this is what I do. I just like throw my ideas out for free because I just want them to happen. I don't want the money. I just want them to happen. I don't even want the fucking credit or the money. You can steal my ideas. Steal it. I'm gonna send an email and change the world. Here's what this idea is. Every single person who streams should do a straight up green screen behind them or whatever, a blank background that you can just fuck with, right? And then after streams are published live, there should be a second layer of content creators. For example, T-clips. T-clips, they clip the T. That's what their channel is. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant premise for a channel. They do a spectacular job of it. I've made a few videos that are just small clips of streams. That shit's tedious. It feels like it's nothing to be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna clip this fucking 90-second thing from this Blair White fucking Lacey Green interview, right? Like it can get so tedious. It's like there's a lot of luck involved too if you don't fucking remember where your shit is that you're trying to find. The point is, what people should do is they should have the full green screen, and then you have a second layer content creator who takes the streams and then they just like add shit. They add like studies or they add backgrounds, they add Lisa Frank shit, they add whatever, they add all that editing to each of the things, and then it's like a multiple layer, sort of like an assembly line style content creation model. But you guys can imagine where I'm going with this, right?
Well,
like,
yeah,
I think that should just be a thing.
That's basically what isn't that what Game Grumps do basically? Because they do their podcast, and then different people will just take the same podcast and animate over it, like with like.
I know their name, but I'm not familiar with them. So maybe
it's a thing. Like you should totally watch that because Game Grumps, they have their regular, just sort of extemporaneous podcast. It's just them talking and being goofy and funny, and then there will be people. I don't really know if they work for the show or if they're just super fans. I have a feeling they might just be super fans, but they take the audio from the podcast and they just animate the various absurd images and situations that they describe in the podcast, and it's twisted and hilarious.
That sounds so stupid. That's like way more than what I even imagined. So yeah, what I'm imagining is totally realistic. But yeah, all I'd have to do is just like take this shit and like I'm almost done. I'm like 50% there. Check this shit out, Jordan Peterson. Suck my dick.
Wait, what is it?
And it's a projector screen that I'm going to use as a green screen. But like it's white, which is awkward. But the other side is black, which is less awkward.
It won't even really be necessary for that much longer because I think Google is releasing some either an update or an app that's going to be available for newer Android phones that will eliminate the need for green screens. It'll just be a function that's built into mobile photography.
That sounds like impossible. That sounds super cool, though.
Google does all kinds of things that are impossible and evil, but mostly impossible.
Mm.
I mean, they've already made cars that are better drivers than people. The only reason that the Google cars aren't out everywhere is just because we don't know how to regulate it. Like, we don't know how that fits into the insurance model or into, legal responsibility. But it's hilarious because they've driven over 1 million.
Oh my god!
miles.
And here I am, fucking trying to get a driver's license at 36, like right now. Like I'm literally, I literally was supposed to take the written exam to get my learner's permit tomorrow, but I realize I'm probably going to be not able to do it at the time that I have to be done by.
That's okay. In a few, once they have the legalities worked out, Google wants to make their own version of Uber. That's why Uber is so fucking scared right now because, the Google self-driving cars, like I said, 1 million miles. They had one accident that was caused by a glitch, but out of the few accidents that have been caused by these cars, quote unquote, they were all other people rear-ending them or behaving badly. The cars themselves are safer than people because they can see in 360 degrees. They never get tired, and unlike us, they have depth sensors.
Oh yeah, no, self-driving cars are gonna change the frickin' world. It's so cool. There's this anime called X Driver. It's actually super cool. Like, the people who have driving skills are they're the former drivers, but when you have these renegade people who like to actually drive on the road, the government will shut things down and bring in the X drivers to have high-speed chases or whatever. It was the funniest concept ever for an anime. So initial D shit.
And do the cars randomly combine into a large robot that has to fight other vehicles that are actually driven by people?
I didn't get that far. I wouldn't put it past them, but I did that. Like they did good car drama.
It's just my thing. Like every anime, like I love anime, but like there's no way that you can't picture all animes at some point could potentially have a giant robot. That's just the nature of the beast, whether it makes sense or not. Like it's always a possibility, no matter how unlikely the anime will eventually have a giant robot.
Or a giant creature composed of several other parts that are like weird.
Oh, yeah,
like, it has like giant cat arms and stuff.
Well, really, they're into tentacles more than anything. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. There's a kind of weird fundamental horror the Japanese have of being small and powerless, which is why in anime and their monster movies and all that, they're always like the most fearful thing for the Japanese is being, small and unable to resist against this giant force that's coming into your homeland. Which is also interesting that like for all their military propaganda that they had in, like, say, Godzilla movies, that the military might is never enough. It's usually either in the Godzilla movies, it's a scientist, like but in like anime, for instance, it's always like the younger generation that has to, pilot the giant robot, i.e., assume a larger role against the invading alien.
I think that it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think that the Japanese culture, the way that they, because they actually really fetishize small things, and like they don't pride themselves on having super big houses and buildings, and even the buildings that they have that are big, like even if you go to Tokyo and find the area that has the tallest buildings, which granted isn't actually that tall. I've been to Tokyo. Their buildings aren't nearly as tall as in New York because there's lots of fucking earthquakes in Japan, so it's not a good idea to build huge tall buildings. But even if you go to the place where there are buildings that are, like maybe 20 stories high, they have the floors are pretty short. Like you can touch, if you're a tall like I'm 6'2", you can generally touch the ceiling in most places that you go to if you tried. And you they like small things very, like, a lot. And I think that there's the notion of sort of brains above brawn, but brawn always being a factor is a very cultural thing, like having to do with, proximity to China and having to deal with the West and being like, hey, we can win, but we just got to be smart even though we're small. Like, I think that that's an entire cultural ethos.
Very true. And they also value endurance more than anything else. Like the prototypical, like, masculine Japanese father, for instance, or the Japanese hero, but particularly fathers, is not like an American father, which is like, brash and big and, going out and single-handedly, say like, this is my family. Like I'm going to, like, very, outgoing, very aggressive. Your masculine ideal for a Japanese father is a quiet man who literally asks for nothing and just does all these things for the people around him without ever expecting reward or even particularly wanting to be noticed. He just does the things that he has to do because he's a man, because that's what he does.
No, yeah, and I mean, honestly, you could take that narrative and like like from that, it's not hard to see how people can construct sort of like a gender flip version of patriarchy and a gender flip feminism, right? Where you say, look at this Japanese culture, look at how it oppresses its men. Frankly, I think that MRA should maybe consider speaking about Japanese men the way that the whole blue pill world talks about Middle Eastern women, like they're the most oppressed people ever. It's like, no, fuck that. Let's talk about Japanese men. Like,
have you heard about the herbivore men?
Oh, and the herbivores, that's actually very fascinating too, because that often gets tied into mgtow. I mean, obviously it's separate because it kind of grew culturally, but that's actually another part about mgtow that's very interesting is that, a lot of it is kind of this accidental awakening. A lot of it is kind of like people could be identified as mgtow when they have never even heard of it. and it's this ongoing issue of men kind of walking away from traditional relationships, which then in turn, from the herbivore perspective, it's much more blue pill, because I think that a lot of it is like they feel like they're a burden upon women, sort of, and they're kind of checking out that way. Like, it's a lot more fucking depressing. But then with MGTOW, it's a lot more Western-minded, which is much more self-interested, which is that they're like, you know what, bitch, if you can't compare favorably to this sex doll, then I'm going to get a sex doll. And until she becomes a sex robot and starts nagging me for DLC and fucking cheating on me, she compares favorably to you, like, which is like really funny and sad also. Thinking how dark I have a very dark sense of humor. I think that's very funny.
It is funny,
but it's also very sad.
Did you guys know that I became a meme to like the I don't know, the alt-right / comite crowd over the past week? Did you know that?
Well, I know they know of you. I don't know.
No. They're obsessed with me. Like, they will not stop talking about me. But the thing is, they are really, really obsessed with me because when they picked a fight with me, they lost, and they've been lying about it ever since. And because they tried to during the whole period when they came after Jeff Holiday and Wizard of Cause, and granted, pretty much everything that they attacked those guys for was a lie. Like, basically all of everything that they were trying to frame them. And whoever is sending me messages, okay. So, the thing was, they were trying to somehow sort of like, basically a few people in particular, I think Andy Worski legitimately believed the allegations. Fucking hell, stop sending those fucking things. They're bugging the shit out of me, dude. I think Andy Worski legitimately believed the allegations, but Tonka Saw was just stirring up shit, and he knew she was making stuff up. Like, at this point, it's very clear that Tonka was lying, and he knew he was lying. And for some reason, he had an ulterior motive to just lie about people. And I'm not exactly sure what that motive is, but he knows he's lying. And
you got a theory, though.
I might have a theory, but I don't want to talk about my theory at this moment.
I'm just causing. I don't know. I'm just causing shit.
Yeah. But Tonka Saw is like a Anita Sarkeesian level liar. In case anyone's not aware of that, like, he just makes shit up constantly. And the thing is, he was able to successfully. I don't know what cognitive thought. I don't know. Cognitive thought has. I honestly, my read of cognitive thought is that he has bipolar disorder and that he's like mentally unwell and that he is going through a weird.
Isn't cognitive thought? Isn't that redundant? Like, isn't thought cognitive?
Yeah.
Is that an intentional like joke? I don't.
So the thing about cognitive.
Slow. Sorry, go ahead.
So cognitive thought. I think that he actually maybe did become a little bit of a true believer and start to think that people like Jeff Holiday and Wizard of Cause had really done all of these things that they were being accused of. Tonka Saw knew perfectly well that they didn't really do them. Like at this point, Tonka Saw knew that he was spreading lies and he didn't care. But I think Cog maybe did believe them. It got to a point where Cog knew he was lying, but Cog just kept doing it. But it's hard to tell how much Cog was just being peer pressured into doing it and how much Cog was actually believing in it. But they made a really, really big mistake when they decided to try to include attacking me, because Cog tried to, trick me onto this fucking stupid stream. And I went on to the stupid fucking stream because I thought Cog was my friend, and they decided to try to interrogate me for an hour and a half about Nick and Jeff. And by the end of it, the only thing that they proved is that I was completely innocent and that they were interrogating about me. They were making all sorts of false allegations, like a bunch of fucking crazy people. That's the only thing that they proved. And then they tried to basically lie and say that what happened didn't happen, but what happened very clearly happened. They tried to make a bunch of false allegations against me and prove that they were liars and that they got, like, if you watch that stream, you can tell that they were just making shit up. So ever since then, they have had it out for me and really, really, really wished that they really, really want me to just drop it and let it go and like walk away from this because they have no answer for it. You know, like when they got me involved in it, that was when they took things too far and discredited themselves. Because had they just came after Nick and Jeff, maybe maybe people would have believed them and believed maybe Nick and Jeff did stuff wrong. But when they came after me, then it was like, okay, you guys are just fucking crazy because Prince of Queens doesn't even use Discord and Prince of Queens has nothing to do with this stuff. And so people were starting to doubt them already. And then they had Allison Tiemann on Honey Badger Radio. And of Honey Badger Radio on the Kumite, their little pathetic blood sports.
Kumite.
The Kumi
in chat thing. Or you would say that?
No, it's the Kumite. The Kumite.
Oh, you're doing it intentionally. Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing it intentionally because it's a joke to make fun of them because I make jokes.
They don't get it. We're too autistic. We don't get it.
Yeah. So they had Allison Tiemann on, and Allison Tiemann actually kind of schooled them. They didn't understand that she went on there with she beat them by not playing their game. She went on there not to argue. All she wanted to do was prove that she had principles and prove that she wanted to plug her fundraising event. And as soon as she did, and as soon as she made herself clear, she left. And they had no idea how to deal with that. Like they had no answer for her either. And but of course they were cruel and tried to spin it as if she embarrassed herself, which she didn't. She proved that she had principles, kind of like I proved that I had principles when they came after me. And so I made a video in support of Allison, and I in one line in my video, I said, yeah, there's some people who probably wish I didn't make this video about Allison. And they think that I'll be adding fuel to the fire of the people that like to gossip about people because they're obsessed with gossiping about me. And to those people, I would say that, I should make this video because if I didn't make this video, I would be a weaker person. And then I said, I'm a man now. I got to do these things sometimes. And the funny thing about it was that, like, I knew I was saying something that would sound silly. Like, and if you listen to it, I say it begrudgingly. Like, I'm not saying, I'm a man now. I am a strong man and I've grown up and I'm ready to take adult responsibilities. It's like I'm saying it like half-assedly. I'm like, I'm a man now. I got to do these things sometimes.
Big boy.
Yeah, basically. Like, I might as well have said, I'm a big boy now. I got to do these things sometimes. Like, because that was the attitude that I was actually saying it with. Well, these people are so fucking petty that they took that one, they ignored the rest of the video and took that one line and have been like spamming that all over Twitter and in comments. Like, they found my comments under a Tim Pool video, and a bunch of people were like, I'm a man now, I'm a man now, I'm a man now. Sorry, when I say a bunch of people, I mean a bunch of sock puppet accounts, because that's mostly what it is. But yeah, okay, that's.
So I don't think Sandy Hook happened, but I think you're conspiratorial.
No.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Just playing devil's advocate.
No, there's a lot of these people are definitely sock puppets, but no, there's some that aren't. Like like, yeah. So no, it's funny that I became a meme for saying something that, like, I wasn't. They think that they're mocking me for something that I didn't even say seriously, really. Like, I was saying it kind of like, I don't want to say as a joke, because it's not like I was saying I am not a man. But it was like, I knew that there was a double-edged kind of bit of a humor in the statement, which is why I said it kind of begrudgingly. If you listen to it, it's like, I'm a man now. I got to do these things sometimes. You know, it was like, fucking hell. I don't want to have to like white knight for a female MRA, because I normally wouldn't do that. But in this case with Allison Tiemann, I think that she actually really does deserve it. Like, she is really awesome. She does do great work. She didn't embarrass themselves on the fucking comité, and I should make that fucking video. And for the record, I'm glad I did, because I'm coming on Honey Badger Radio on Monday, so fucking suck it.
Yay. I'm really happy about that. I'm really happy that you get to be on them.
Yeah.
So I do need to go to sleep now because I have to be at work within 5 hours, which fucking sucks.
So CJ Trex. Oh, okay. You can take off. I'm gonna go on for a little bit more while I drink this.
Fucked off though. I just wanted to speak a little bit to the issue you had described, just because I kind of watched it all unfold, and I was the one who told you about it when it was all fucking going down. But
yeah.
But like the thing about it was just like the original issue that they wanted to talk about was some comments that Random Graham had made on some of Metacritic's videos, right? And just like looking at it and looking at just like the scope of the whole conversation, just you really, really need Dr. Random Graham's comments to matter so fucking much in order to make sense of the perspective of the people who are like in on this Kumite shit. Like, and you can tell, I don't know, from my perspective, and I'm obviously extremely biased because I'm a supporter of the Honey Badgers. I have been for years, you know, since basically almost since it was fucking founded. I've been following them because I think that their content speaks for itself. It's actually fantastic, and just the sheer amount combined with like what they all cover, it's like insane. And like there's nothing else like it. There's really nothing else like covering men's rights the way they do. But the point is that when you look at it from this perspective of like, what are they actually like? When I first heard about it, I only heard about the abstract of, oh, Allison and Jim are going to debate, and I'm thinking, dude, there are so many cool things that they might disagree on that would be super interesting to hear. Because, you know, Metaker is very against activism. He thinks it's fucking stupid, right? And obviously Allison is much more pro that, right? And I thought, like, that's obviously a great sort of a setup for a debate. But no, what does Metaker want to debate? It's fucking retarded, petty internet drama that doesn't fucking matter. Like, had Randomer Cam's comments been by anyone else who didn't have a following and who wasn't kind of a character the way that fucking Mike, fucking Dr. Randomer Cam is, then it wouldn't have been a thing. You just be like, oh, who the fuck are you? Gonna fucking ignore it, right? So it's a very clear case, I think, of selective outrage. And the ulterior motive is obvious that, you know, like you've pointed out in your Bloodsports video, they need to manufacture drama and they need to explicitly hunt out drama in order to sustain this model.
And if they can't find any, they can make stuff. They can make drama by lying about people, which is their favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Somebody
too. This was a hunting that I think he had combed through, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Dr. Rennick made these comments back in fucking like 2015 or some shit." Maybe there was an ongoing kind of a banter.
I have no idea.
I didn't follow it closely.
I can't even follow Jim's beef with fucking Dr. Remember. I don't even know what it like. I still don't know what it was.
It boiled down to basically like he thought that, as far as I could tell, like he seemed to think that Randomiker, or I can't say his name. I'm gonna call him Ushanka because I can't say his name. But like he made a big thing about the Ushanka. I don't know. That he had said some sort of shit about Bloodsport, and that Metaker thought that he was a bitch, and like that was his position. Like it was almost like Steven Crowder's like, you know, blah, changed my mind. Like that was basically his position to Allison, is like, you know, I think your friend's a bitch. Defend that position. And it was interesting in the before the stream.
No, that's not. I don't know. That doesn't answer my question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I still don't understand what, like, that doesn't get to be an argument. Like, is your friend's a bitch? Like, I want to know why he's mad at him, because there's a reason.
They're
Jim,
recreating.
there's a lot of things that you could say about Jim, but he's not fucking stupid.
He's not stupid. No, he's brilliant. He's extremely smart. He's extremely brilliant.
Yeah. He if someone told me that he was actually a narcissistic psychopath that we know tortured animals as a small child, I wouldn't be surprised. But he's brilliant.
I didn't think he was stupid, but that's just all I could see of what it just seemed to be the gist of what he was saying, at least to Tegan. Whether or not that's the reason he's saying it, like and granted, I couldn't watch the whole debate. It was just too cancerous.
So, by the way, I've gotten 2 super chats from this person named CJ Trex, and they said, "What are the lies they said about you? I don't know if I missed explaining it." And that's a very fair question, because honestly, the lies that like Tonka, like the usual suspects, the Kumite crew has said about me at this point are too numerous to name, and I probably don't even know all of them. Like, they've probably made up like 25 fucking things about me at this point, like, that are just fucking lies. They're just not true. So the one that most recently is off the top of it, and pardon me for not remembering all of them, but there's just been too numerous to possibly even remember all of them. The one that's most recent is that cognitive bipolar disorder. What's a good name for him that we should call him? Like, cognitive
Oh, I don't want to, because okay, this was the last point I wanted to make.
Cognitive dissonance.
What we're all doing, people are just recreating fucking high school on YouTube.
Oh,
right?
hey, yeah, but you know,
they're the fucking jocks, and they're fucking the bullies, and they're fucking picking on
no,
the
no, they're not. No, they're not.
No, you're just making up names for people behind their back.
No.
That you're putting it on a stream that they're gonna see later, and then they're gonna.
No. No, okay. No.
I'm just here to be moderating and to keep things responsible, because I'm the one who's not unhinged. By the way, dumb camps.
No, okay. So here's the thing. Like, cognitive thought is actually like been lying about me for a very, very, very long time, a lot. And he, I think, very likely actually, okay, a lot of people on the internet have mental problems. He should probably get some treatment for his, because otherwise, I don't want to say I feel bad for him, because he's lost any compassion for me at this point, just due to the vehement vengeance that he has attempted to enact on me, like, for no reason. Like, he picked a fight with me, lost the fight, and then has been going around lying to as many people as possible, trying to say that I picked the fight with him and that he won, and then he's continuing to instigate more fights. It's like, it's the amount of insanity that I've had to deal with from this guy is just, I don't want to say I've never been through anything like this in my life, because, you know, I've had crazy ex-boyfriends that were obsessed with me, but like, it's pretty bad. So this guy, the most recent lie about him that he's said is that I remember is that I allegedly had the idea to do the collab video with him, because him and I did a 2-part collab video about 9 months ago, and it was his idea, because Cog is one of those people that is kind of a collab whore, as far as I can tell. He's done a lot of, I mean, I don't know. I don't really fucking, I don't follow his YouTube career that much. His videos don't really interest me. He mostly did response videos back in the day, and they're mostly pretty boring. I find him kind of boring. He can be a witty guy on streams if he's not like obsessively talking about drama. But he and I had been in a few streams. This is what happened. We were in a few streams. He seemed witty, and I think after one of the streams was over, and I don't remember whose channel this was on. I don't remember anything about this really, but we were on a hangout after the stream was over, and he was like, "Prince of Queens, I want to do a collab with you. Would you like to do a collab sometime?" And I was like, "Oh, I I guess maybe, I don't know. And you know, I was drunk, I'm sure, because I was drinking a lot back then. And I looked at his channel, and you know, he had like 6,000 subs, and I had like 6,000 subs, and so I was like, yeah, I guess maybe. I mean, do you like, what would you want to do it on? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, it looks like you mostly do response videos, and he's like, yeah, that's mostly what I do. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, would you like do the editing? Because I really hate editing response videos. And he's like, oh, totally. I would totally do that. I totally do the editing. And I'm like, oh, okay, okay. And then I realized that I had always wanted to do a response video to when Cat Black tried to go on and on about how gay men are always sexually assaulting women, and that she had a whole video where she talks about the plight of the poor women that allegedly get groped by gay men. And I realized that I always wanted to make a response video to that. And so I told him, I was like, ooh, would you want to do it with that? And he was like, yeah, totally. Just hit me up. And I was like, okay, cool. So in a week or two, or I don't remember when, I hit him up and I was like, hey, would you want to do that response video to the Cat Black video or something like that? And I sent him the message, right? Well, it was his idea to do the collab video, right? And I agreed to do it because he said he would do all the editing, and I got to choose which video to do it, which is why I pursued it. And I included in my most recent video that the reason that I did the most recent video, when I mentioned him, I said that the reason that I did the collab video was that it was his idea and that he did all the editing. Well, he's trying to tell people now that it was my idea, and somehow he saved my messages that I sent to him, and he's trying to say that that's proof or some shit. And it's like, no, you dumb fuck. It's not proof. That's proof that I wanted to do it and that I sent you a message. If you had some long message from me being like, hi, Cog, I know I don't know you that well, but I want to propose that we make a video together, and I want it to be this Cat Black thing and blah, 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 blah. That might be some better evidence that it was my idea, but that's not what you have. You have me reminding you of some fucking thing that you had already brought up. That's just one of many, many lies from these fuckers. They lie about me all the time. So I got a little bit more money. He says, would you like me to get caught? Calling a man a liar without him present to defend himself does not end well. Think before you open those meat flaps. No, I don't want you to get Cog. I want to talk about Cog as much as I feel like it. Because he always talks about me. The end.
It's a busy.
I will talk. Like you know, like here's
but no,
yeah. Here's the thing, you guys. Like people who talk about people on YouTube and blah 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 blah. Like those fuckers, they want confrontations. They want to quote mine people and to put words into people's mouths and to get things so that they can keep going and blah 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 blah. You have to avoid ever interacting with them, and you have to find the people that actually do have integrity, and you have to talk to those people, and then you have to tell your side of the story to those people. And sooner or later, the bad people, the people who do lie all the time, nobody will want to hang out with them anymore. It's kind of like the kids that in high school, let's say there's a high school cafeteria, and for a while there's like, okay, Derek, you're echoing.
Oh, sorry, because I'm not using my headset, I think. But
so
actually, you know what? I need to go to fuck to bed. Actually.
Oh, okay.
It's the responsible thing. I've been having fun, but I know that I'm gonna regret how late I've stayed up already. So anyway, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I feel like this was a successful first episode of a thing.
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
I'll be interested to. I wish I had thought to check on the last.
I'm gonna save this and cut out the end part because I don't want the end part to be a part of it because it's stupid.
What empire? What was it?
This part where we're talking about the stupid drama
Where he
stuff.
devolved.
Yeah, because it's not relevant to what this podcast is. But I want to finish this thought.
Okay. I'm gonna fuck off, and I'll keep listening. You guys keep it easy.
Bye.
Right.
So
Great meeting you.
the thing is, people don't get to lie all the time and expect people to hang out with them and expect people to give them the time of day. Like, people keep accusing me of being scared to like face people like Cog and Tonka or some shit, where that would be kind of the equivalent of like, that would be like the internet equivalent of let's say a guy is well known for always carrying around box cutters and jumping people in groups of 6 or so, and that guy told you, yeah, I want to fight you one-on-one on a football field at midnight. Would you fucking show up even if you thought that you could beat that guy up? No. These people are such serial liars. They've done things to me like get me on Cog's channel without telling me why, without telling me what the purpose of the stream was. Like, I didn't know that Cog was going to interrogate me for an hour and a half and like throw all these false allegations out about me and all this like weird, crazy stuff that he did. I didn't know that that was going to happen. He wouldn't tell me what he wanted to talk to me about, and I thought that he was my friend. So for him to even bait me onto that stream was already dishonest by itself. But it got worse than that. The reason that they had me go on Cog's stream was so that they could dually broadcast it on Tonka's channel at the same time, so that they could try to like hopefully publicly embarrass me on a secondary channel. They didn't tell me that was happening. Like, that's the level of insanity with these people. So of course I'm not going to talk to them, and of course I'm going to talk about them as much as I feel like it when they're not around, and they can't do anything about that because obviously the gloves came off before I even realized that they were going to pick a fight with me.
Yeah, that was yeah, it was a shit show to say the least. But sorry, long day.
Hey, Geek Thulu, we know what you are. We know what you are. And I think that it's a time to end this stream.
It's giving, yeah. Well,
you guys know where I stand. I will talk about you as much as I want, and I will correct the lies as much as I want. Goodbye.